What is
they
up,
can see
ladies
me.
and gentlemen? How's it going, everybody? It's DH Thorne and the Flesh Priest coming back at you live. We're hanging out tonight. We're going to be doing whatever. I am still learning the ropes of this bizarre Streamlabs version of OBS, but what's everybody up to tonight? Good to see everybody.
And I hope you all are looking forward to some spooky stories because I have collected a few for you.
Yeah. I got the, looks like we got the chat working. Looks like it's going to be pretty good. I got some holiday decorations for you, which probably a good idea to give you guys a microphone, a headphone warning. Apparently this thing, one of the things bottoms out the microphone. So
Yes.
when we get a super chat, just be ready to lower the volume. We're going to see how bad it is. But yeah, so.
And, oh, you know what? Speaking of super chats, before this even started, Low Key hit us with a super chat, said, have a good night.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
headphone warning.
Oh, okay.
He's not so bad.
Don't be afraid. People sound crazy.
He's kind of corny. He's kind of corny like that. But he's loud.
Okay, not bad so far.
It's like that second or third one.
Okay, yeah, getting a little shrill. And, oh man, I hate to do... Okay, you know what? I'm gonna sneak it in while he's still howling.
Woof,
Steroid
woof.
Maximus with the super chat says,
Oh, it
hail
means I
the
gotta do it
Infernal
again.
Empire. No. Yeah.
You sure?
Okay, it's not as bad as it was earlier. But still, headphone warning.
Back. There's danger ahead.
That's pretty fucking annoying. Shut up. All right, good.
Woo!
Woo!
God,
So
I feel
it's
like
sound
I
and
need to
motion
sausage
activated.
out my microphone next.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. So, fun and games over. We're going to be having a good time tonight. Anytime you guys give us a super chat, I will have to let one of those guys rip, and it'll be my choice. They might both go off. They're both pretty eager to hang out. So,
The familiars are eager to please.
yeah, I think we should name them. Do you guys want me to name them? I think. Can you guys tell that's like a raven or a crow in a cage? Which I feel bad he's in a cage. I want to take him out. And then I got like a devil dog. So let's get like in the chat. Let's go in the chat. I want the names that we should give them. Like, so let's start with the name of the crow. And try not to make it like the name of like a demon or something. Make it something original. You know, like the name for the crow. So we'll do that one first.
Yeah, because if it's the name of a goetic spirit or some other entity, then that's just going to be confusing when, you're doing your work with them. Like, no, not you.
I mean,
was
unless they
talking to the
activate
crow.
it. That'd be pretty cool. They could like activate it right in the middle.
Okay, that would be kind of fun. Just, Poseidon speaks to me through the dog, for I have also named him Poseidon.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
What's up, Evil Angel? What's up, Jojo Blair? What's up, Gin Genie? What's up, L'Oreal DeGoth? Oh, L'Oreal. Why do I say L'Oreal? Like, what are they, like L'Oreal? Like Vidal Sassoon? They're like...
You're worth it.
They're worth it. Go. Do you have Beetlejuice music? I don't. In fact, if I did, I would get like some kind of a strike or some shit. Cat Jones. What's up, Cat Jones? Star Ruby. What's up? Wyatt's here. The youngin', the young buck.
By the way, I noticed that message you sent me, Wyatt, on Skype only just now. I hit you back with that, but yeah, sorry I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'm going to make a little announcement. Until further notice, we're not going to be doing... if we do Skype calls, like if we take calls, it's going to be audio only from guests. Because the way this new OBS thing works, I would sooner reach my hand into a box full of old sweat socks, diarrhea, and tarantulas that are mad because they're in diarrhea boxes with old socks in them. Because fuck this shit. Like, it's a giant pain. It's like buggy as hell. Buggy as hell.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I know how you feel because that's the way that mine has been working with my lack of NDI functionality. It makes it a complete pain in the ass, especially when new people jump in or drop out. You have to completely rearrange everything. So audio works just fine.
You know, Laura Lee DeGoth said no, like the song by Corpus Delicti. Actually, that's right. I forgot about that song. I forgot all about them because I don't think I really listened to that song much. It was in like one of the Goth Box collections that I had back in the day. And I used to listen to that on the train into the city. But I don't think I I don't really remember that song. I sort of remember it, though, now that you mention it. So, yeah, that's definitely... Okay, didn't realize that. Someone says, love your book, The Chosen Need to Get It. I like the way that's like, it's almost like they made a sigil out of all of those words.
I like that edition of The Chosen. Yes, that...
Yeah, wait till you see the next one. The next one's probably going to be... I don't know if people are going to like it, or if I'm being just too hubristic or something right now, because I feel like some people are like, I don't get it. And other people are going to be like, this is, like, really good. And other people are going to be like, this is crazy. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, Eddie's not here. If Eddie was here, we could ask him for a little review of, like, 2 paragraphs I gave him. But I took those 2 paragraphs out. He's going to be really mad.
Here, review the things that couldn't make it into the book.
Yeah. Well, you know why? Because I don't want to make it so fucking cerebral that you need a PhD in fucking metaphysics to even comprehend what I'm talking. That's not I'm not saying I'm that amazing. It's just, it's like some things I just know. How do I put this? Like, I'm not putting in physics math because I don't know the math very well, but I am putting in a lot of stuff that's like, should I include these really deep ideas that are maybe not just too cerebral, but go off on tangents that go too far into, the boonies. So, this specific tangent had a lot to do with the nature of space-time and the fact that we see individual points in space. A point object has no size dimension. It is infinitely small without a size dimension. It has no left, right, up, or down scale. It is just a point in space. And theoretically, the universe is made up of an infinite number of points that are adjacent to each other, but here's the problem. Adjacent means touching, basically, right? So if something has no size and it's touching, the only way for something with 0 size to touch another thing with 0 size is for them to be overlapped. So we don't see that in our experience, right? So this is part of how I deconstruct the illusion of what you're thinking is reality, by showing you how illusory all of this crap is. But yeah, so we won't, that's the thing, is like going into that, I think some people would read it and be like, okay, but what does this have to do with magic? And they wouldn't understand that, like, the point I'm trying to make is to deconstruct your illusory reality so that you understand just how much faith it takes to even just take 3 steps down the road, because there really shouldn't be anything there, is what I'm getting at. So
I think it's good you're taking this approach rather than, the Crowley thing of like fucking super hyper sigil, need 4 books open at the same time to like fully get all the intricacies.
You know,
like
what,
wrapping
though?
your head around some of that shit will be enough.
You know what, though? I think that in some capacity, that would make me a more popular author if I got popular. Because what would happen is you'd have people going, like that Rick and Morty meme that everybody copy pastas. Well, you actually have to have a really high IQ to get Rick and Morty, because so people would be saying that about the D.H. Thorne books. But you actually have to have a really, so it would give them a sense of ego just for being able to comprehend it, which nothing builds a cult like giving people an artificial boost of ego. Nothing. So don't ask me how.
Yep. I am fascinated enough with true crime to know that's fucking step 1 to making it. Well, maybe not step 1, but certainly one of the first steps to making a cult. Hello,
well, this is how
crack.
all religions work. They start by taking a shit on your self-image. That's like step 1, is to make you feel, broken, inferior, sinful, bad, and then they fix you with their mystical ways. So that's how they do. That how it be do. They'll be like, hey, you're a sinful fuck, you're miserable all the time, would you like to escape suffering? If you'd like to escape suffering, please meditate with us for only $49.95 while staring at this wall.
God fucking hates you. You want to get him to love you? You should put some money in that offering plate and show up every Sunday.
I mean, I'm willing to believe that God, if God existed, hated us because he put our fun factory right next to our Play-Doh shit factory. They're pretty much side by side. It's like, the toxic waste dump is right next to the jungle gym. It's not really like,
He fucking gave us foreskin, and then he's like, nah, you gotta take that off. I forgot to push the last patch through before it went live.
that's such dingle hopping bullshit. Like I'm not. I mean, look, do what you want, but like I don't
Do
get
what
it.
thou wilt will
Yeah,
be the
do what thou
whole of the
wilt, but-
foreskin.
Yeah, I would just as soon keep that fucking thing. You know, just fucking learn how to bathe. Like that's that's really what it boils down to. Do you know how to bathe? If yes, keep foreskin. If not, you figure it out. But yeah, so
I wasn't aware of that branching path upon the Kabbalah.
it is. It's actually like just to the. I'm not even gonna say. So Ajna says breaking you and then giving you the helping hand. Yes, that's pretty much it. Now here's the thing. It is actually necessary to break something to reach an enlightened state. What I mean by that is we are all highly addicted to the illusion of reality. So even in my book, one of the things I have to do is help you break some of that illusion a little bit. And that's difficult because so much of that illusion is, how shall we say, not just persistent, but we are stubborn in our resilience for keeping it, keeping it in place. So this is why, you have so much in religion where there's so much to do about either breaking your ego or breaking your ability to think so that you accept. And sometimes it originated perhaps from a good place, a place that was like, yeah, we want to help these people reach our enlightened state that we know is possible. So I guess we got to make everybody feel bad so that way they can be turned into, open-minded things. It's kind of bullshit because it's kind of like they were right, but then over the years, like the bad guys took over and turned it into a weapon instead of like a way to enlighten humanity. It just became a way to enslave them instead,
Well, you got to keep it moving. You got to always be reinventing it and keeping it interesting. And you need a little bit of that chaos to get the people hooked, keep them going.
Yeah, people are, look. We could, I wish I had the money, time, and interest to do it. I would like to do an experiment where we raise children from birth with a highly non-dual ontology in their mind where they don't even get to call themselves I. They say like the Hanar from Mass Effect. They say this one and all that shit. I want to see what happens when someone is not encouraged to have an egoistic assertion about themselves because Helnikainen says the ego wants to be God. It hates when it sees that it's not special. So here's the thing. The ego is the behavioral pattern of attachment or association. So ego is not a person, place, or thing. It is a behavior. So your ego, when we call it your ego, we're really talking about like how you make spaghetti. Like that's kind of like what we're saying. It's not the spaghetti itself. So the ego associates with things. It attaches to things. And the ego is a process. It's a habit. So breaking that habit's actually not hard. Most people do it throughout the day. They just don't realize that we all do things in a non-egoistic place. We'll drive a car, we'll do something, and we'll completely forget who we are, and we're just totally in the zone. That's an egoless, selfless moment. And that's actually closer to the divine than when you are deeply entrenched in ideations which make you attached to things, makes you think. So when you say, I am D.H. Thorne, I am, I'm a woodworker, I'm driving a car, this is my car, this is my house, this is my beautiful wife. When you're doing that, that's ego in practice. Now, the proper role of ego is to be an avatar, not a thing, but an avatar process, like a way to so your consciousness is focusing its attention on the here and now where the thing you think you are is. So you need a certain little nuanced element of I am this to maintain that threshold, that perspective. But it's not necessarily true. You can completely do without that egoistic habit and still be centered in the here and now just fine. So the enlightened ego is the ego that is able to be unattached. It's the ego that's able to let go and admit that, okay, I'm not this. The problem is that so many egos do that as a way to be like, see, I'm enlightened now, instead of just being enlightened, right? So the ego says, look at me, look how enlightened I am. Ooh, look at me, I'm a god. So it does all of this shit, and that's the problem. So a lot of people will hear when I say something like, I am a god, they'll be like, what an egoistic thing, because if that statement was me saying that in an egoistic way, you're right. And sometimes it is. Sometimes that's literally me going, I'm a fucking god. Sure, that's true. That's an egoistic statement. But here's the thing, you can't make really many statements at all without being some level of egoistic. It's ego is built into the mortal pattern. It's kind of impossible not to demonstrate some kind of ego in this process. It's pretty much impossible. Everybody, turn down your speakers.
Headphone warning. Super
Headphone
chat
warning.
from Jin Genie. Didn't say
Rest
anything, just gave a nice tip. Appreciate
Rest
you,
in peace,
Jin.
hearing.
Beware. No one
Oh, that's so corny. So fucking corny. Oh, who hates that? Let me see in the comments who hates that shit. Ooh, shut up, you. Be quiet.
Ooh.
Oh, that's when it's good. That's the good one.
Ooh,
it's like
that's-
the third or fourth one. Oh, we got another one. Somebody wants it.
Oh. Thank you, question mark AJ. But that 666 says, thank you for your insight and great work. Non-duality is what's up. Too many left-hand path people miss that.
Fuck yeah. Thank you, AJ. Up. Good. I was able to just trigger the one.
Okay.
Thank you, AJ.
Cool. We cool.
Thank you, AJ. Thank you so much. Yeah, give us all a comment if you hate those fucking things, if they're too loud. If they're not too loud, then that's cool.
I mean, I dig it. I even like the corniness of that one. You gotta... anybody who loves Halloween has to also love a little bit of the corniness of it. So I
at least a
fucking dig
touch.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I like just the legit spooky part. Like, it's my favorite time of year, just in general. But yeah, I mean, it's... What am I gonna say? You know, you gotta have a little bit of the goofy. You gotta have a little bit of the ooky with the spooky. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you can't just have.
The ooky makes the spooky so much more delicious.
Yeah. So, it's got to be in there on some level. So.
And speaking of the spooky, do you want to get into some spooky tales?
I think we will. My wife said she's not going to listen anymore because that's too loud. She's hearing it all twice. It's driving her crazy. So. You know what? I'm going to risk it one more time, right?
Oh.
Because I'm going to shut off his sensor. Okay. Woo!
Don't be afraid. People say I'm crazy.
Corny as fuck. Love it. Corny as love it. All right, honey, you can hear now. I turned off the whoo bullshit, so you don't have to hear it anymore. Let me text her. You can listen again. She probably won't. She's probably going to play a video game. Let me tell her.
So you know what? So those of you who didn't catch it, I actually want to start doing a new thing every week where I share one of your guys' stories, something funny, something insightful, something meaningful, really anything about your work and what you're doing, and share it with the community. It can remain anonymous, it can go credited, and this week I'll start off this shindig with one from a good friend of ours, Dr. Eddie Romanov.
I'd actually like to preempt that with a little bit of a buy our crap moment, sort of.
Okay.
There's a lot of people here who I've seen before, but there's also people I haven't seen before. One of the things that has happened recently was E.A. Quetting and Timothy Donahue got deplatformed off of Facebook. And if you ask around, a lot of the people that are on Facebook that are, I will say, somewhat successful occultists, people who are 5,000-6,000 subs, whatever, or more, they're finding Facebook to be less and less of a place that we feel welcome because of all the stuff that's going on, all the different drama. Don't get me wrong, we all have plenty of our fans there. It's not the problem. It's not you guys. It's the environment is completely and utterly repulsively toxic. So I'm going to continue using it, of course, but it's really just an ocean for me to cast my net into. as time goes on, I don't plan on being on Facebook forever. At some point, Facebook's got to go. It's got to go the way of MySpace, between the censorship, the fact-checking, and all of the related bullshit. I want to eject from the Facebook drama community, because that's really all it is. You can't go on Facebook without just oodles and oodles of drama and argument, because that's how Facebook makes its money. The algorithms are set up to attract you so that you sit there and your eyes are rubbing up and down that screen all day arguing with people, and arguments are actually one of the best ways to encourage interaction. So Facebook encourages arguments. Trust me, I've watched my feed like a hawk to see what comes up and why. When there's stuff going on, I can look at friends that I know will post positive stuff. They'll never come up. It's only when it's like Trump this, Biden that, fart fuck this, and it's just endless fucking drama, and it's sickening. Be informed. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that they're tweaking you. So Facebook is a place that I am much, much less interested in as time's going on. You'll notice that I have a lot more interaction on Discord. Yes, I'm mostly active in the politics channel, but I'm very active. I read most of the I think I skip video games and music most of the time, but I read most of the stuff you guys write sooner or later, especially if you tag me and stuff. I love when you guys tag me and stuff. So Discord is pretty much, you know, the focus of my online interaction right now.
I noticed you didn't respond when I tagged you in that most recent video I made.
I didn't even know you did it, man. Sometimes I skip a tag. I got to admit it.
I'm giving you shit because it was a
because I said I see them.
It was poking fun at you.
I fucking hate you now. In fact, I'm cursing your suspender thing. I'm cursing one of your straps. It's gonna pop off. No, but for real. So fuck Facebook. So here's the part where I'm plugging something. Are you ready? If you go into the description of this video, or if you look on the screen right now, there will be a thing that says Linktree. If you click that Linktree link, or Fleshy, if you could put it in the chat if you don't mind.
Yeah.
That Linktree link, the very first link on the Linktree link is a link. If I say link one more time, I'm going to have to fucking summon Legend of Zelda. The top button on that URL will take you to my sign up page where you can put your email address, and I'm going to be giving you guys email alerts. Now, here's the thing. It's not just email alerts when I post stuff on various places, mostly YouTube. Once a month, or at the very least once every 2 months, but I'm aiming for once a month, it's going to be a legit newsletter, not just by me, but by people who are volunteering to present articles. So it's going to be like an email magazine, an e-zine, basically. And once a month,
we're going so 90. Yeah.
It works though. People were really like, "Oh, I love this idea," because it's kind of like people haven't done this kind of thing in a while. So we're going to do it, and we're going to see if it works. Let me pin that. So make sure you guys click that URL right there that's pinned at the top of the chat, and go on the very first option. Click that. Enter your email address. You can unsubscribe anytime. You'll even see that I've got a P.O. box set up there. So if you have to send me something physical, hey, I can check it. Just be careful what you send me, because apparently they have bomb-sniffing dogs and stuff. So we'll be able to check it. But sign up for the email list. You won't be sorry. And if it becomes a burden, then just unsubscribe. That's all. So give me a shot. We've already got over 100 people. I'd like to get it to about 300 by Christmas time. That would really be cool. This way you can really... Here's the thing. All of these social media platforms they sort of made a honeypot. They created a thing where everybody comes and is like, ooh, look at all the people we can get to. Look at all the things that we can do. Look at all the audiences we can reach. Wow, this is like a big, beautiful, market that I can tap into. Now that they have all eyes on them, now they're tweaking who's allowed to use it and why. So it's like the oldest trick in the book, right? You get them into the house and then you tell them who can use it. And that's what they're doing. So they will throttle me on YouTube if I get even a little bit political. They will get really, they'll shadow ban people for talking about the shots and stuff going on. It's not good. So let's, one of the things that they say whenever you have an overbearing tyrannical system setting out is you need to set up a side culture, a side system, a separate system that is equal to and just as good as the one that they're trying to use. So let's do that. You know, let's, instead of like being all bitchy and moany, oh, this is so bad, because it is bad. Let's create our own little side universe, shall we? So we did have another super, didn't we, Fleshy?
We did, actually. From Eden Garden with the $10 super chat says, "Hi Thorne and Sup Flesh Priest." Appreciate
What's up,
you, Eden.
Turn back.
The
There's
crow.
danger ahead.
See, the crow I like. The crow I can get behind.
You want me to get behind you? I've heard how you fly. Anyway.
No, I'm not. No, that's totally cool. I don't browse the furry stuff, man.
Yeah, Pano says, Thorne, you want me to send you a rattle? I got a few. I mean, you can send me whatever you want. I'm not promising that I'll review things, but I would, you know, if you've got like a cool thing you want me to see. I know a while back, Custom Made Incense asked if she can send me incense, and I always said no because I don't like giving out my personal address. But now I got a P.O. box, so if you want to send me stuff to check out, no promises that I'm going to do anything with it, but maybe I will. Feel free to send me whatever you guys want. So it's right there when you sign up for the email list. You get a welcome that has all that in it. So Tiny Blue Wizard, he's fine. He's fine. He just didn't fit on all the stuff I got going on, so he's here.
You are opening up the floodgates to have people send you handwritten smutty fanfic.
Hey, it's the price you got to pay for having 5,000 subs, which, by the way, the last order of business, I'm less than, 70 subs away, just so you guys know. So we're about to crack 5,000. We'll probably do it this month. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually tentatively thinking about doing some kind of a simplistic giveaway. Nothing fancy. I might offer it, to... We'll see, people on the email list. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how it goes when we get there. I've got a couple of things I'd like to give away, a couple of little necklaces, a couple of little tapestries, nothing fancy. But if you guys are interested, that would be another incentive. I'm not promising I'll do it. It's just something I'd like to do. I've been wanting to do that for a while. I just got to figure out the right way to do a raffle, basically.
The thoughts of cooking.
Mm-hmm.
I can help you with that. I've looked into it a couple times.
You help me with everything, Fleshy. You help me with everything.
What can I say? I'm a secretary.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start making you wear short skirts and shit if you want. Speaking of that, like Hecka just got an awesome new, on the Discord channel, he got an awesome new title.
Oh, okay. That is not where I thought that was going. Okay. Yeah. He's our fucking Sage Master now.
Yeah, Hecka, he's not here right now, but if he's watching this later, he is the new Sage Master. That position could be open to somebody else too if he gets bored of it. But if you see somebody that's in gray lettering, they're the Sage Master. What that means is
come and fucking cleanse everybody of sin, because sometimes you can be too sinful even for us sometimes. So sometimes a bitch needs a good saging.
Yep. So whenever there's like beef in the house and it's over, you can type !sage in any one of the channels in the server and the bot will sage it for us. So, yeah. So, okay. I think I'm done with the with all the soft plugging. No new products yet. So that's it. So I guess we're ready for Eddie's story because Eddie probably has good stories.
I'll just whoop right into story mode. This is actually a short one. He just shared a experience. Let me get it here. The first time he did a major evocation of Lilith. I did a minor invocation of her every night.
He just said a major invocation. He's lying. I'm kidding.
That was the setup, and now it goes. I did a minor invocation for her every night for the week leading up to the new moon. On the new moon, I did the major evocation, and something threw me and held me down on the bed. I couldn't breathe. My whole body flushed because my blood pressure spiked. I felt her claws inside my body, shredding my guts. I saw demons standing around the room. It was fucking wild. And he notes he was stone cold sober for the entire thing.
I'm glad he noted that, because that's usually the first place I go. Yeah, I mean, so all I can say is it go on or is there more?
That's it.
So one of the things
short and sweet.
That's fine. One of the things I'll say about stuff like that is that I am, as you know, a highly skeptical and rational person when it comes to these things, which is kind of strange because people would think that I believe everything, you know. But that's one of the criticisms that I have of occultists and spiritualists and people into magic around the world, is they're too quick to accept and believe. Now, that doesn't mean that you are rudely saying you're lying to me and you're being a hard skeptic. What I'm proposing, you always test the fucking spirits. You know, we can't say the Bible does everything wrong. That's one of the wiser things it says. Always test the spirits that you're experiencing. For all you know, you're leading yourself down a path of self-delusion, and mortality is a self-deluded path, period. So why make it worse by compounding things? Now, why I say this is, when someone has an experience like this, there's times when it's absolutely real. There's no question in my mind that people have this kind of experience. My only issue ever is when people insist that there's no possible rational explanation for what's going on. Now, Eddie, I know Eddie. So this is why I'm saying this. Eddie probably has a combination of spiritual, because the higher understanding is the spiritual truth and the material world. They are not just mirrors of each other. They're actually the same thing, but our senses, our conceptions are tuned to the material emanations from it. So no matter how mundane the object or experience is, you're just seeing the material side of it. So instead of thinking it like there's a heaven and a hell and an earth, or there's an as above and a so below, or an astral and a material, and they're separated, or that they're somehow stretched apart and there's an extreme of either. The thing that's extreme is your awareness of it. The truth of the matter is they are perfectly unified as one thing, but you have the capacity, because of your infinite ignorance, you have the capacity to sort of like taking, here's a way to think of it. Think of it like you're putting your hand between both your eyes like this, right? So Fleshy, do that with me, but look, do the thing like you're on the Three Stooges, right?
Why,
Okay,
I oughta?
So you can see both hands of both sides of your hand at the same time, right? Well, what happens if you look more to the left? If you look more to the left, you really only see the one side of your hand. If you look more to the right, you only see this side, right? I mean, you literally, if you're looking to the right, you can't see the back of your hand now. It's impossible. It just goes away. So that's what you're doing when you're experiencing reality in a mortal state, is your consciousness is looking only on one side, the material side mostly. It's heavily skewed to the one side. They're both the hand, they're both the same thing, but you're only seeing that side of it. Now, that's fine, okay? But the other issue that you can run into is if you flip that and your head is way off in the clouds in imaginary land, not that there's anything wrong with imagination, but your head's way off in the clouds of imaginary land, and now you're looking the other way, you're only seeing that side, you're still not getting the correct, proper image of reality. You need to basically cross your eyes. You need to look straight ahead and then look straight into it. Then you get both sides. You really got to combine all of these things in such a way that you are consciously merging them. And the problem that I have, though, is that people assume that these far out visual experiences are real in the way that, how do I put this without going into some deep ass fucking platonic form, discussion?
I don't know. You're on your own with that one.
I'm going to try to keep it simple. So let me give an example. When you see a ball, a sphere in your hand, okay? Yes, you're looking at an object that looks like a sphere, but a true sphere, and Plato's form of a sphere, is invisible. There is no substance to it. You can't see it. You can only know what it is. So you're capable of knowing something without seeing it or hearing it or feeling it. Like all of these sensory awarenesses that you have, including the vision of a spirit, that's sort of a soft delusion. I'm not saying that sight is completely wrong. I'm saying that that's not the true nature of the beast. The thing you're seeing is an emanation, a shadow of the real thing. Let me give you a quick example of what I mean. If I ask you to think of something, if I ask you to think of anything, I'll use the red fire truck example. If I ask you to think of a red fire truck, you don't need to go piece by piece and build a red fire truck out of ideas and have it just... You know, without seeing it in your mind, what a red fire truck is. Otherwise, you couldn't summon the red fire truck into your imagination. So what I'm saying to you is the true nature of everything, not just the material world or the spirit world, both together, is actually something completely intangible and abstract that you cannot understand in the way that you have been trained to understand reality. Yet, a part of you does. Because if I ask you to visualize a red fire truck, you don't have to intentionally put it together. Your consciousness knows what a red fire truck is already, and then the image is presented to you. This is how all of the thought processes in your mind works. So I'm going to leave that there. That's what Eddie's little story brought out of me. See how annoying I am? I turn everything into like this thing. I turn everything into this thing.
I mean, I think that's what people tune in for.
Do they? Do you guys tune in for that, or is it annoying? What? Tell me the truth in the comments. I'm sure some of you love it.
The lesser banishing ritual of the fire truck.
So that's really... The reason this is so fucking important is because so many people get superstitiously attached to the things that they're seeing. And there's nothing wrong with seeing things. Don't go so far the other way that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. What you need to do is take out this expectation. So somebody asked me, how do I open my third eye? And I'm like, it's probably open, you're just not looking through it. Or it's you know, it's people get these superstitious ideas in their head. They don't realize how easy all of this really is. And that's not just because I'm special, it really is easy. It's harder to explain than it is to do, right? That's the irony of it. It's really fucking easy to do, but it's really hard to explain. So when someone says, how do I open my third eye? You can play the game of trying to visualize everything. That's great. But you know what the epiphany is? Is when you realize what I just told you, is that everything you visualize is actually non-visual. Everything that you're trying to see has no visual element to it. Opening the third eye doesn't mean you suddenly see things with your eyeballs or even your inner eye. Opening your third eye means that you're suddenly aware of things in their true form, which is totally abstract, totally incorporeal, totally unknowable in the logical way. It's just, you just know. Okay, that is what it is.
I like what Upon Earth has to say. You don't open the third eye, you just learn to see from it.
Right, and it's not a sight, but we use the word sight because our language is limited, guys. I'm not sure what other word to use, right? I'm really not sure what word works for that because it's not visual. You know, a person who's literally blind, when they open their third eye, I don't think they just suddenly see stuff. It's a knowing. It's an intuitive knowing. It's just, I know.
Wouldn't that be a fucking trip, though?
Another way to think of it is, if we're playing with the chakras as allegories here, when the crown is open wide, you're guided. But if your third eye is not open, you don't know that. So you'll know people who are very intuitive, but they don't know they're intuitive. They just are lucky. They make the right decisions. They seem to be guided in things, but they don't seem to know that they're guided. They don't know that they're intuitive. They don't know that they know. So crown wide open, third eye shut, that's the kind of person we're talking about. Someone with an open third eye is fully aware of the guidance from their crown. That's what and that's difficult because ego loves to shoot up from the heart chakra. That's where the ego lives, by the way. Nothing wrong with that. Some people go, no, the heart's pure. Relax. It's a throne where the ego sits. Trust me. The ego shoots up from that spot and jumps in that third eye and goes, ha, I can see everything. Look at what I can see. I must be guided. I'm God. Look at me go. And it will just drive you off a cliff. So watch out. I had some caffeine. I'm sure you can tell.
Okay, I'm not the only one. Good.
So we'll
But
we'll,
yeah,
we'll come
and-
back to this one maybe in a little while. We'll come back to this one a little bit in a little while. Let's get to.
And-
I don't know how many stories you got, but I'm sure you want to get to another story.
I've got a good collection.
And I apologize. We may get some buzzing. I need to put my fan on. I'm a little sweaty.
I get it.
My
And
new
what-
computer's loud as fuck, by the way. I don't know if you noticed.
I can hear a little bit of wind, but it's not bad. And something also, something that you touched on that I do appreciate is some of these stories do seem a little bit more believable than others. Some of them are just fun, so take it with what you will. Approach everything with skepticism.
And just to return to Eddie's story for a second, and my point is that knowing Eddie, if he was going to tell that to us and explain himself, I'm sure so much of what he felt and saw was subjectively true. So what's happening is, I don't care if it's psychosomatic. I don't care if there's literally ghosts floating around pulling you apart. The experience is still valid, even if you can't prove it. Okay, that's an important thing. But only you know if your experience was actually valid. That's something, this is one of the reasons why honesty isn't just a right-hand path axiom. It's actually true in every path. If you don't have a very high level of at least self-honesty, you can lie to the world, but if you're lying to yourself, you can't do magic. You're just an idiot. You just can't. Magic doesn't work if you're a liar to yourself. You have to be completely honest with yourself. You have to be skeptical even of your own experiences and be honest with what you're experiencing on a level where you don't just say, because of wishful thinking, I know that was Lilith, when there's a chance that you were drunk. And that's why, like Eddie said, I was completely sober at the time, because that's an important element to say. So, all right, I'm going to step aside so you can do the intro of the next story.
The doobly-doo. Okay, so the first one I have is by somebody named Colt Has Seen Some Stuff, and it's called Help Me, I'm Lost. This is my first post and is a true story. I was living in rural area in Oklahoma with my mother at a small lake house. I was probably 10 to 11 at this time. One night I'm sleeping in my room when I randomly and abruptly wake up for no reason. This was not normal for me and I felt very uneasy. The only sound I could hear was my mother snoring in the next room on the couch. I rolled over and tried to get back to sleep, but I needed to use the bathroom. It was growing more and more urgent, so I grudgingly forced myself to head that way. The bathroom is on the other side of the house, around a corner and past the kitchen, and finally down a long hallway on the right. So after I made the trip and finished my business, I flipped off the light switch and started heading back to bed. That's when I heard the distinct click of the light switch and saw the glow of the bathroom light in the hallway. Terrified, I slowly turned around just to witness the light in the bathroom start clicking on and off. Click, click, click. Let me just... Finally, it shut completely off. In the dark of the hallway, my eyes began to make out a white shape near the end of the hall. Enough of that. It was around my size and crouched to the floor. At this point, I'm frozen to the spot as my mind begins realizing that no one else is home except for my mom and myself. Then, the white shape began whispering in a quiet man's voice. Help me. I'm lost. I remembered wanting to scream for my mom, but I couldn't, and instead, I barely said, no. Before this thing starts running at me on what sounded like all fours, I quickly ran through the kitchen and around the corner before running into my sleeping mother, shaking her awake. I remember saying, it's coming, and my mother's eyes going from dazed to alert in an instant. She asked me what was going on, and I saw her eyes look over my shoulder before she screamed. Remembering her scream still makes my blood run cold. Never had I heard pure terror like that in my entire life, even to this day. She grabbed me by the arms and pulls me into the room and slams the door. She holds me in her arms with her back pressed against the door as we listen. It sounded like this thing was running around in circles in the kitchen. We could hear hands and feet slapping against the tile. The kitchen had a sliding glass door to the outside, which sounded like it was thrown open and slammed. We sat there horrified until daybreak. I was sent to my grandmother's in the next town for a while after that, and never set foot in that house again. Years later, my mother said she was walking around the property after the incident and came across a small burial site with 3 headstones. Each belonged to children from the early 1900s. It freaked me out because what I heard that night was a man's voice, but it was so unnatural. My mom still will not tell me what she saw behind me and what it was that made her scream. She tells me she's afraid it will know we're talking about it and it will come back. This is the first of many weird things that have happened in my life.
So I like that story. I mean, for what it's worth, that actually has a ring of both truth and a little bit of elaboration, but definitely truth in there a little bit, because I myself have had weird poltergeist activities in my house, so I don't doubt that it's possible. Some of it sounds a little specific, but I don't, again, doubt that some of it's... So here's what could happen too. You wake up, you're really sleepy, you're kind of half in a dream state, so your mind is actually open in ways that maybe, you know, you're definitely gonna have more vivid experiences, I think, you know, when you first wake up like that. You know, what strikes me is very likely, you know, at first I'm like, well, I can imagine why the light might click back on or off or whatever once, you know, because it's got a spring in there, whatever. It's got some tension. I could see it like,
yeah, or, you know, it's just a fucked bulb too.
Yeah, there's like a lot of different ways that can happen. But then when you have all these different elements put together, assuming that this wasn't just a fanfic that you wrote, it absolutely rings true, and at least most of it, to the point where I would say I could see why you would like tell us that part for sure. Because I've had weird shit like that where, you know, stuff from when I was a kid, but even as recently as 10 or 15 years ago, back when I was a hard skeptic at the time, you know, I didn't believe in ghosts or anything. I started to believe again because I had a lot of weird shit happening that was physically true. And it was absolutely undeniably happening. My wife, there was witnesses. This wasn't just like I thought I saw, or maybe kind of. I'm talking about stuff that happened.
You had the fucking Abuelita spirit throw the fucking tortillas across the room.
Right? And, yeah, the La Llorona spirit. She got pissed off at my kitchen housekeeping. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I've seen stuff that shouldn't be. I've seen, like I said, cabinet doors open and a split second later, a freaking box of taco shells fly out. Why the ghost wanted to tell me about taco shells? Maybe they were poisoned. Maybe they liked them better when they were broken. All I know is, yes, totally plausible. So, you know, I had my scientifically minded friend come over who's as big, if not a bigger nerd than me. He's like my real life Eddie, because I bounce science ideas off of Eddie. He'll vouch for that. I bounce some because he's more educated than I am. But like I figure he gets what I'm saying. He tends to say like it's
how he thinks it. It's like, no, avionics is bullshit. That's not how electronics work.
But that's why I like him, because he will help me, and so far he hasn't corrected me, so far we must be on the same page when it comes to higher form physics. But anyway, which he's like I never have any much education on that either. I'm kind of a dumbass that knows electronics, but he knows a lot. He doesn't give himself enough credit. But we make fun of Eddie, but we got to build him up a little bit. So I have my science-minded friend come over, and we try all these different ways to explain the taco shells flying out of the cabinet, and I guess if we had some MIT guys come, they could have figured something out. We knew it wasn't a rat. Rat wouldn't do that. It was really, really creepy. So that's only one story. There's a lot of stories like that in my house. So I'm inclined to believe at least that that's possibly a true story. Absolutely. And so that leads me a little bit into, just for a minute, a little bit of a rant about, you know, we have to remember that as far back in human history as we're able to look with written language, we have ghost stories. And the ghost stories of old fit a certain understanding of what spirits are that I sort of came to independently just by contemplation. And when I think about it and I go, well, that makes perfect sense. So you guys have probably heard me say many times that you're all egregoric in nature. Okay, so some of the language is confusing because I say you are this. That's an egoistic statement even on my part, because if I say I am something, really what I'm doing is I'm denying that I'm everything else too. So even when you say I am, you're denying the things that you think you're not. You're saying I'm not that. It's actually a lot easier to say I am than to say all the stuff that you're not. So you say I am, but you're really denying everything. So when I say you are, I'm also denying that you're part of me when I do that. So it's an egoistic statement, believe it or not. But getting back to the point, the thing that you think you are this soul that you think you are, this spirit that you think you are. It is a very complicated whole. It is a whole in chaos. It's a whole in that the thing that you think you are is separate from the things that you think you're not. So it's literally like a whole. And this whole reflects both ways. Like you project what you think you are out of the whole, and reality reflects that back onto you. This gives you an egregoric spiritual nature. This gives you like, it's like a two-way mirror. Like it mirrors both directions, and it's almost like when you have two currents of air or water. When they collide, you get like this cool effect. Have you ever like blown like two things at each other, and you get like a weird effect where it makes like a wall? Have you ever seen that like wall that happens when you blow two things together?
Phrasing. Yes, I have.
When you have two different currents of energy docking each other.
It's just like that fucking Deep Purple song. Smoke on the water. Yeah, no.
Okay, yeah, good analogy. So when you have, or like when you pour your coffee and your tea and your water and your milk and all that together, and you get like that billowing. But imagine two of those coming together, and you get like this billowing thing that happens, right? Your ego, I shouldn't even say your ego, but your experience of ego and their experience of ego, they're competing. Okay, I have to backtrack a little bit. When you hold a solid object, so I've got this piece of garnet in my hand, it feels like a solid object. The only reason this object feels solid at all is because the forces in my hand and the garnet, they don't agree. The forces in my hand are saying this is my hand, the forces in the garnet are saying this is a garnet, and when they interact, they don't pass through each other. They're literally trying to go opposite directions. So a force, the only thing a force is flow that's opposed by something, right? So, Flesh Priest, if I were to push you, if you were to accept that push, you wouldn't feel the push. That is to say, if you saw it coming, you were like, "Yep, I'm getting pushed," before you get pushed. Like if you backed up with the same energy that I push you with, you wouldn't feel a push, would you? You'd literally just move. You wouldn't feel a push. You'd be going with the flow, right? Mm-hmm. So the only way for you to feel the force of a push is to not go with it, to resist it. So the only reason why this feels like a hard object is because this object and my hand are resisting each other's flow. Now that you've heard that, that's the material side. The spiritual side is exactly the same. This is why, like, shows like, what is it? Is it Naruto? No, not Naruto. I hate these. Oh, Bleach. I hated Bleach. That's why I don't like even bringing it up. Bleach has like spiritual pressure, right?
I heard Ace the Goblin just scream out
I'm
for
sure
a reason he knows not why yet.
Yeah, I'm sure he probably dropped all his weed and shit. Like, what the fuck? Who said that shit? I love Ace. I don't know where he's been. He's been AWOL a little bit.
He's been busy. Yeah,
I think he has. So spiritual pressure, when you have this spiritual pressure, it's going from all directions. There's a flow. Now remember what I said earlier in the stream, spirit and materiality are the same thing, just seen left side, right side. It's the same thing. You're just seeing the other incarnation of it, if you will. So this pressure is real. There is a spiritual pressure. It's not limited to this object though. Spirits are non-local things. They actually don't have a location. That's what ego does. Ego says that spirit is here now. I am this hand. So now my spirit is associated with this hand, right? And it's like stuck. Okay. So the spiritual pressure, okay, is what sort of creates the illusion of the spirit being there. The egoistic pressure creates the illusion of a spirit being there. That's an egregore. Now, an egregore requires not just one person believing it. That's just a thought form or a servitor. An egregore requires a collective conscious approach. You have to insert an idea into the collective conscious. You have to say, this is Mickey Mouse, this is Superman, this is Flesh Priest. You, for lack of a better word, what you think you are, the person you know yourself to be, that you're like, when you look in a mirror and go, this is who I am, I'm this person, that is the quintessential egregore that has been embodied in an in a literal idol that you call a biological body. So you're literally an egregore that's been anchored to your body. You don't realize it because egregores don't often realize that they're egregores if they're well made. They don't know that. They live. So these egregores are created. They're created by the interaction and the thoughts of people. When you're born, someone tells you your name, who your relationships are to your mother and father and all that. And you form into this egregoric entity. So what happens when the body dies? Well, what happens to an egregore if you break their altar? I mean, their idol. Does the egregore just die? No, of course not. The egregore is still out there. Because the egregore is non-local. Because it doesn't exist in a location. It exists in all locations and no locations at the same time. It is in the collective consciousness, and of course the collective consciousness it's in like null space. It's in zero dimensional space. It's a thing. Okay? So when your body goes kaput, that egregore no longer has a body to associate itself with, but an egregore has energy. It's got momentum. Because people remember it, the collective consciousness, it's a hole in chaos, literally, through which chaos can peer. It's a point of perspective. Now, of course, consciousness can just say, fuck it, I'm not going to pay attention to that egregore for a while, probably. But it's still going to do what it does. Because none of this is really, I don't want to get too far into it. It's still going to continue on because it has momentum in the collective consciousness. And it can stay alive indefinitely. Nothing's immortal, okay? The only thing that's immortal is consciousness itself. Anything that changes or grows or begins will eventually fade and die. This is why even the Greeks understood that gods could die. And the way that gods they wouldn't call it death in a mortal way, but a god could die by being chopped up into millions of little pieces and banished, or they could be forgotten in time, and in long enough a period of time, they would eventually fade and just disappear. That's because they're an egregore. And egregores, once forgotten, they begin to fade, but there's still something there sometimes. There's still enough energy, momentum in them that they will seek to have attention placed back on them. If not their full story, at least the acknowledgement that they exist, because that's what they crave. Egregores are built out of ego, and ego must be fucking validated or else it dies. So that egregore will do anything to get validation, and if it's got enough energy, that egregore will continue and will do things to get attention. This is why the ancients would worship the dead. That's why the ancients would make offerings to placate them so that they wouldn't get uppity. Because they figured, well, that's my grandfather, and I love my grandfather. I'm going to make sure I keep giving him libations at the very least once every full moon or whatever we've agreed upon in our funerary practices. This way, his spirit will feel loved and it will stay energized, and I'll tell stories about Grandpa, and my grandfather's legend will grow, and his egregore will be happy and healthy in the underworld. And if we forget Grandpa, maybe in 2 or 3 generations, Grandpa's going to be like, the fuck? No one tells stories about me anymore? Nobody gives me libations? Who am I anyway? Nobody's remembering me, because in the collective conscious, the memory's fading. So they begin to fade, so they may become angry ghosts. Very possible. Very, very possible. That can translate into all kinds of stuff. Now, where I draw a kind of soft line is when spirits do physical things. I'm not saying they can't, I'm not saying they won't. The reason I draw a soft line is because if you take those physical paranormal experiences, the flickering of the light or the flying of the taco shells, if you brought in a really, really good expert who could objectively really study the situation, there's a very high probability that they will come up with a probable, realistic, rational reason for why it happened that wasn't a ghost, because you can't prove a ghost, because they're, what did I say? Non-local. They don't have a physical location. So you can't say that the spirit is in this lighter, but the lighter might have a spirit in it, if that makes sense, which it probably doesn't, but yeah.
Has the spirit of fire contained within it.
Yeah, I mean, the spirit of fire is associated with it through our intention. So So this house absolutely had a presence in it, and it's still here. Occasionally we still feel it. It doesn't rattle the walls, it doesn't knock shit over anymore, but we do sometimes feel like there's a presence in the house still. It used to be creepy, but ever since we talked about it and started telling people's ghost stories, it calmed down. It doesn't come back. Plus getting a dog seemed to help. I'm not sure why. It seemed to calm down once we started treating it with respect and treating it like a member of the family a little bit. It just calmed right the fuck down. And that seems to be a way that, the houses that are the most fucking haunted, the absolute most fucking haunted, are the Christian households where they try to cast the damn thing out with fear and anger and antagonistic attitudes. The houses which have the least problematic spirits, a really good, down-to-earth, witchy, pagan, satanic household where they're just like, oh, hi, ghost. Hi, please don't knock that over. Please, ghost, stop it. And it's completely different. Yeah.
There's that, from what I'm aware of, there's a thing in Japanese mythology where you're supposed to not hold on to stuff. You're supposed to get rid of things that you aren't using, because by not releasing them, by holding on to them but not showing them purpose, they become very angry. They become angry through the neglect and lack of attention.
Yeah, it's true. Now, Jen says, well, everything is made of energy, is it not? Here's the problem with that statement. If everything is energy, what's energy? That's like saying everything is God. What's God then? Now, the reason why that I ask it like that, if everything is God, that means there's nothing for God to be the God of. In other words, there's nothing inferior to it. So therefore, it's not God anymore. God needs something under it for it to be God of. So that's why I jokingly say everything is God. It's still fine to say it, but it's still kind of wrong. When we say everything is energy, if there's not something that isn't energy, then it can't be energy, because energy requires something to work upon. You see what I'm saying? So energy is the materialistic association of the illusion. Reality is something that is completely enigmatic and cannot be described linguistically. It can only... Remember what I said earlier about how you can know what a red fire truck is without seeing it? The only way to know what reality truly is to stop thinking about it and trying to explain it and trying to understand it, and to just have gnosis of it, to have knowledge of it, to have a Zen. That's it. I knew what it was in that moment. Now it's gone because I'm trying to think about it. The moment you try to think about it is the moment it stops being what it is. The moment you start trying to explain it, it stops being that. And all of my explanations, if I'm doing my job correctly, should never be seen as a encyclopedic description of something. I'm pointing at what it is. There's a saying in Zen, Zen is a finger pointing at the moon. Well, what I do is like that same process. I'm trying to detach your superstitious, analytical, linguistic, syntactical associations from the reality of what it is, so that you can have a more pure experience of it. Because when you can do that, you're no longer attached to the delusion. The next thing that becomes interesting is when you're no longer attached to the illusion, that means you're not stuck in the illusion. You can flow with the illusion. That means, in theory, magic becomes possible, because magic is not the act of changing things. It's the act that I prefer the word sorcery now, which back in the old days, sorcerer was a word that literally meant one who bends fate, one who alters fate. Okay, so what you're actually doing with magic is you're not causing things to happen. That's putting the cart before the horse when you say I caused something to happen. You have to go back to the Matrix movie with the little boy and the spoon, bending the spoon, and Neo's like, wow, how you doing that? He's like, well, it's actually crazy to think that you can bend a spoon, because there is no such thing as a spoon. If you want to experience it, it's you that has to bend. So the truth is, if you want magic to have a result, you have to be unbound. Your ego has to be unbound a little bit so that you can actually sort of flex. You can bend yourself and contort into this other reality where the thing you want to see is happening. I don't want to. That's bigger conversation. Totally bigger conversation. So I'm going to drop it there. Think about what I just told you and see if you can figure it out.
And that's a good segue. We actually had 2 super chats while you were talking.
Oh, dude! All right, read the one. I'll snap.
The first one is from Dice Controller 187.
Ooh, Dice. I saw you had a question before too. I want to answer that question if I can too.
Yeah, that's actually the super chat. He said, DH, how do you keep from developing tentacles that feed on their own? Is this answer in your vampire handbook? Thank you, Dice Controller.
Beware, no one goes there.
Beware, no one goes there, motherfucker. That's not a good question. No, it's a good question.
What, is the Raven a magic 8-ball now?
I think he is. All right, so the short answer to your question is no, it's not in the book, but it sort of is, because if you want to keep yourself from being what I call a predatory, obnoxious, unconscious feeder, then you have to feed on purpose. So you have to sort of lean into it to get control over it, and then wean yourself away from it by learning ways to balance your energy body that don't require feeding actively. So Flesh Priest will tell you, a lot of people tell you when they're having not a bad day. I don't want to hear people bitching and moaning, but when I sense like a legit, like, oh shit, the person, like, suddenly I'm just like, let's talk about it, because that's, I've contorted my feeding habits from predatory into sympathetic. So what's happening is it's synergistic. It's instead of parasitic, it is symbiotic. Okay. So I'm no longer trying to trigger you to be upset by manipulating you and doing things that get you unhappy. I'm actually trying to get you to feel better. And in the process of feeling better, it's like when you have a fusion reaction, okay? It's releasing energy because you're so pent up and angry. If I can get you to feel a little better, you release that energy as like this big blast of ambient energy, and I just inhale that into myself.
Ooh, feeding time.
Basically. And you'll notice, like, if I have a positive effect, I feel really fucking good. If I fail you, I don't feel so good because I'm linked to you a little bit. I can do this from around the planet. It doesn't have to be next door. It's because spirits are non-local. You can do this anywhere. So long as I can make a connection to you psychically, I feel your pleasure and pain in a real way. And I'm like a pit bull. I don't let go until you're either satisfied or you're feeling better or we just fall over tired, because that's why you'll notice that I'm a little distant until I really feel like I want to help, because the kind of empathy I have is very passive. I don't feel what you feel unless I let myself feel it. If I'm feeding off of you, I'm no longer like a detached empath where I'm just aware of what you're feeling. I'm now feeling what you're feeling a little bit. I'm letting you in, and now our egos are merged where I feel better if you feel better and I feel worse if you don't. So it's a little risky. So I don't attach to everybody's fucking problems. Most of the time I'm just like, get this shit out. I don't want to know. Not my problem. So if you want to, so you're talking about the feeding tentacles, which is the visualization of a non-visual thing. It's like a skin overlay on your computer. When you change the operating system skin, that's what you're doing. When you're seeing it as tentacles, your subconscious knows what you're doing. But there isn't really, so I hope you're listening here. This is really important, Dice. You don't actually have tentacles. You really don't. That's a visual, conceptual, syntactical, linguistic image symbol for something that has no visual element to it. It has no material element to it. It is like, Flesh Priest can help me out with this one because he's doing coding now. In your computer, in your computer right now, there isn't pictures of anything. It's just code. And that code is processed and projected at you in a way that you see as an image. So these tentacles that you're seeing are a little bit like that. That is the projection, like an operating system, like the desktop overlay, showing you tentacles, but there isn't really a tentacle there. That's in your imagination, but your imagination is that side of your hand. That's your imagination. And the hard world is that side. So there's something there, but it's not a tentacle and it's non-local. So that's why I'm talking to you about these other things. You have to learn to feed intentionally the right way so that you can get control. And you'll find that there's not a lot of vampires in their 40s, 50s, and 60s unless they just figured it out. A lot of times people figure it out when they're younger and they outgrow it because they start feeding intentionally. Their energy body kind of figures itself out, and there's no longer this habitual need to do it the same way. They learn to do it in a safe and healthy and friendly way. Period. And I got news for you. Anybody can learn to do it the wrong way. You know what I mean? Anybody can learn to use vampiric forces. That's why I wrote that book, because I know for a fact people who, you don't just get born this crap. It's not a genetic disorder. It's none of those pop culture bullshit things. It is a thing that develops, and it may develop in the womb, but it does develop. And it's not although there are physical sides to it, I'm not going to deny that. It's not something you can test for with a blood test. It's not something that will show up like that. This is a psychic thing. Even blood vampires are technically psychic vampires. They just don't seem to get off any other way if they're strictly sanguinarian. So my book does not have the answer, but it has a lot of answers in it. It's a smaller book. So if you haven't read it, I still recommend it. It's very useful for this. So hopefully, so you can more or less learn to rebalance it. And everybody has a symbiotic relationship with energy. Of course, energy being a word, like I said to Jen before. So Jen, don't think I'm contradicting myself. Energy is a symbol, okay? Your consciousness is cycling through energy all the time. Okay, that's a given. All a vampire is just an impolite symbiote. they're just rude. That's really what it is. They're imbalanced and rude. Maybe that's not strictly the truth, but that's metaphorically the case. Because a living thing must feed on life. Life eats life, period. Period. So a vampire eats life in a way that is maybe a little bit less pleasant. Now, the real wild part is what happens if you are vampiric upon death, physical death. Is the egregore still vampiric? Well, in a manner of speaking, all egregores that are disembodied are vampiric. Why do you think they often need so many offerings and libations and remembrances? That's how they feed. Literally every ghost is vampiric on some level. There, you heard that from Thorne first.
Dice says, I'm reading the book now. I don't know if you beat him into submission or you just got him intensely curious.
He all caps that because he remembers, he's an old fan. He knows that all caps gets our attention. He's not shouting. He knows. So thank you, Dice. That really got me ranting. So thank you so much for that question. Hope you guys didn't get ranted into the street.
The other question.
What's up, Atroba? Sorry.
Super chat question. No, you're good. This is your show.
It's our show, motherfucker.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it's mostly my show, but...
From C.M. Helnikainen with the other super chat. Half joking, half not. Any tips for starting a non-dual dark mystic secret society in college?
Do you dare come closer?
So you got to softball them in. Say you're making a study group, you're making a D&D club, and then slowly make it more and more real.
As someone who ran a cult, unintentionally at first, for a little while, be careful, because even in the position that I'm in now, I really try hard to abdicate and to delineate and to delegate things right now. And I try to remind myself this is our community, not my community. This is one of the reasons why I'm offering writing slots in my newsletter. Is I'm trying to de-emphasize just Thorne. As much as I love this guy. I'm trying. I'm not going to do a good job of it. Like, don't put me on a fucking pedestal. I can't stand when people see me as some kind of enlightened master who can do no fucking wrong, because sooner or later I'll piss you right off. I can't wait till I do it, by the way. You can tell when I feel like I'm on a pedestal, because I will, like in Fight Club, when he like beats the crap out of the pretty boy, and he's like, I felt like breaking something beautiful. That's what I do. When someone is kissing my ass too much, in a way that isn't, like, it's too much, something clicks in my head. I don't mean maybe kissing my ass isn't, that's not the right word, Fleshy. That's not the right word. When they're assuming my nobility, when they're assuming things about me as a good person, that's the right way to put it. Because kissing my ass doesn't do it. I ignore that most of the time.
It's like, damn you, no. I love my faults. See my faults.
Yeah,
damn
like
you.
Accept them. Accept the fucking faults, and don't tell me who I am. Because that's when maybe that's my Plutonian side, having Pluto in my first house. I don't know. Because I'm technically an Aries. My sun sign's in Aries, but I barely go by that anymore. I think I still act like quite the Aries, though, I got to admit. But yeah, so I really don't like when... I'm not saying people have to point out my flaws. I'm saying don't... So here's the thing. When you put somebody on a pedestal, you feel like you know them. You feel like you've got them figured out, and you see the good in them, which is good, but you idolize them. I don't mean like they're better than you. I mean you idolize them. So when I say, don't put me on a pedestal, people go, oh, you're saying that you're so superior, you think I'm putting you on a pedestal? No. I'm saying you're treating me like a work of art. You're treating me like a thing that you own. You're acting like you own me. Like putting somebody on a pedestal, it's not just an ego trip for the guy on the pedestal. You're also fucking up because you're acting like you're owning them, because the moment that they no longer act like the work of art that you've treated them like, instead of just being like, hey, they've got a flaw, I can deal with that, it destroys the whole fucking thing. So whenever I feel like somebody has me on a pedestal, I'm very quick to find a way to rub you the wrong way. I don't even know if I mean to do it, I just do. Like, it's just something like, motherfucker, you don't know me. I'm not a good person. You don't know me.
Gonna sneak in real quick. Super chat from Patchwork says, yo, brothers, what's up?
Patch.
Appreciate you, dude.
Patch?
Don't be afraid. People say I'm crazy.
Nevermore.
Yeah, Ajna says objectivizing. Yes. Very good way to put it. And Atropos says, my ascendant is Virgo! And that says a lot. Absolutely.
Oh, you know
There's
what?
some Libra in there, too.
Hey, to put a... I wish I could give more practical advice, but, you know, to button up your question, Mr. CM, gotta have an outfit, and everybody's gotta have a cool name.
True, yeah.
Go
Well, me and Eddie
totally
were talking-
Clubhouse with it.
Me and Eddie were talking about how if we ever got our cult going, we'd all dress up like goth Amish, which is not that hard to do because Amish and goth kind of look like a little bit alike. So we decided that our uniforms would be like goth Amish. So
Goth Amish sounds like you would be like a fucking Dark Souls NPC or something.
Basically.
Like one of the
Yeah. Not Dark Souls. Which was the one where it was kind of Lovecraftian that came out?
Bloodborne?
Bloodborne, yeah, a little Bloodborne looking. Yeah, a little bit like
Fucking
that.
love
yeah.
Bloodborne.
I gotta play that. I never played that.
Oh, holy shit. Okay, hold on.
Oof, people must like the crow.
Yeah, get the crow ready. Jay Sauber sent a super chat. Didn't have anything to say, but fucking appreciate you, dude.
Thank you, Jay.
And
Danger ahead.
He says you're in danger, Jay. I don't know, man. Watch yourself.
and also Justin. Ooh, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that.
I thought you were part French, motherfucker.
Boulio? Yeah, but
No,
that's
that's Beaulieu. That's Beaulieu.
I'm fucking Acadian. It's fucking dirty French.
Oh, okay. I don't speak French at all. I know.
Language.
Is Justine Beaulieu? I'm still butchering it.
Justin, you say, I would like to know more about Prince Stolas. Besides the video you posted a while back, have you worked with him again? And making another video about him.
So I'm gonna skip that for a split second and respond to Sefer Agon first, and I'm gonna come right back to you, Justin. It says,
And I will
DH,
be
I wanted
back
to
in
ask
just
you.
a moment.
DH, I wanted to ask you. You once said curses don't work. No, those were words that came out of my mouth, but the intention was a little different. Watch my last video, "The Open Secret of Magic," and it will better explain what's really going on. That's not quite what I meant. It's sort of a play on words. I'm not going to get into it today. Watch that second to last video I did called "The Open Secret of Magic," and that sort of explains it a little bit better. All right, so Justin, I unfortunately don't have the best news for you because I don't really work with Prince Stolas much more than that. Probably, one person told me that one of the reasons that might be is because I'm so much more focused on various crow spirits, and crow and owl are sort of mortal enemies. Even in the spiritual world, they're kind of competitive a little bit. And Prince Stolas is absolutely the Christian demonized version of like Minerva's owl and that kind of a spirit. So unfortunately, I don't have any new stories, and honestly, not much that I would tell, because at some point I don't like going too far. Here's my reasoning. The way I see it, you're supposed to have your own experiences with them. You're supposed to reach out to them yourself and have your own experiences with the spirit. You're supposed to sort of build your own grimoire based around them. And you can absolutely over-research a spirit to the point where you don't have your own vision of the spirit, you have somebody else's. So I intentionally, even if I have a lot more to say, unless that spirit's constantly telling me, like, talk about me because I did this for you, that's part of what I want as my reward, blah, 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 I don't bring them up very much. And I don't say much more than I say in those review videos. Like, people were saying, oh, could you give us like some follow-up videos? They do happen, but they're not demon and review videos, because the intention is for you to use that video as a guide to get to know them, and now you're supposed to have the experiences by yourself. I do make exceptions, like Lucifer I work with so much that I will talk about Lucifer way more. King Vine, I have a lot more experiences with, especially lately. A lot of people have been needing him for ritual. Although I've been turning more towards the Mahis side of him. Mahis is the old Egyptian god of sort of justice and revenge, and that's kind of what Vine is like the Christians kind of demonized whatever that was. Maybe that's not the original origin. Maybe they had no idea that Mahis existed. But whatever that energy is, the archetype's pretty much the same. They're pretty much exactly the same character. They're just represented a little differently, and the Christians treat him a little bit more negatively. So Stolas, I don't really have much experience with. I'm not going to say zero. I'm not going to say I didn't have anything after that. I'm just going to say that the experiences I've had are much more subtle. I think that, to be honest, I think my love of crystals is in some way related to President Stolas. I really do. That could be why I have such an affinity for crystal work. If you look at my altars, if you look at my possessions, like I collect rocks and gems, like I'm just crazy for them. Like I just have too many of them. I mean, if you look, I always have this gemstone and this rock. I'm almost obsessed with having stones. So that could absolutely be something that President Stolas has instilled in me, is an enjoyment of stones. And I remember when I first came back to Magic, my knowledge of stones was very limited. And I remember I had this guy, he's not really a friend anymore. In fact, he's kind of an enemy now, but he was sort of my friend for a little bit. And, he came on the show a few times. We talked about crystals, and I was just in awe of this guy's knowledge of it. Like, I mean, we don't get along. I mean, he's kind of a jerk to me, but I got to respect the guy. He knew his freaking crystals so much. And I almost wish that he didn't turn out like that, because I could really use a friend like that who knows stuff like that.
I love people who just have interests and knowledge and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I really, like that guy, like President Stolas was that guy's, like, definitely, if they didn't know it, it was definitely one of the spirits that guided them the most. So I can't really talk anymore about President Stolas as a spirit, and I'm dwelling on this so much because you were so generous with your super chat. I almost wish I could refund it because I don't really have an answer for you that's going to be what you were hoping for, and I want to be. Look, somebody else would have taken your $10 and said, "Oh yeah, I had this, that, and 6 up," and then he came and perched on my arms. You know, I will say if you're looking to work with him, consider using him as sort of, if you want to do some astral travel, use him as a mount, so to speak. Like either you ride him like with like a hypothetical spiritual saddle, or you see through his eyes and almost like Beastmaster. He's absolutely capable of being used that way. But other than that, you know, not really. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. So I hope that's good enough, man. I do appreciate you. Thank you so much. Whew.
And we actually have another super chat from Patchwork too. I think I want to read this one, and I want to get to another story afterwards.
Okay. And I want to just respond to Sepher after that too. So let's do Patchies and then Sepher and then the story.
Yeah. So Patchwork, thank you for the super chat, dude. He says, my ascendant sign is Scorpio. What does this mean? I know it may be off topic, but that's something I've been wondering about for a minute now.
So astrology is one of those things that I end up having to look up what a lot of the positions mean, you know.
So it's a lot to have to remember.
It is, and that's why I write shit down and look it up. So my memory sucks. Like, you know what I found out? Like, that's something I've heard from a lot of like mystical people, is for whatever reason their memories they're not on the same level.
That's why you write books.
I think that is why we write shit. And you'll notice I repeat myself a lot.
Journal.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why journaling's so important. Maybe because there's just so much in here, and we're not lost in thought all the time, so there's less associations going on. You know, someone who's sort of mastered a high level of, we'll say, you know, in the moment thoughtlessness, we'll say. Someone who's not addicted to thinking. They still think, they just don't think with the habitual necessity that they normally have. There's less association going on. So maybe it's a little harder to remember shit. But to my memory, the ascendant is... So when you have something in your ascendant, that is sort of like what you're outwardly becoming like. Not becoming, that's what you're outwardly looking like.
I actually I was curious myself because I know fuck all about sun charts. Do you want me to read what
go for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause
RyanHart.org?
Atropa could probably tell us too. She does a lot of astrology stuff. So
yeah, so jump in with what you guys think about this. But Scorpio ascendant personality traits. Scorpio rising individuals are extremely secretive. They keep things to themselves and do not want anyone to know what they are thinking or doing. They are experts in hiding emotions and are very good at acting as if everything is perfectly normal and all right with them, no matter what the situation is. The Scorpio rising personality type is thoughtful, intense, and analytical. Scorpios are loyal, ambitious, and determined. They are also sensitive, secretive, and guarded about their feelings. Their main concerns are death and transformation. This position vibrates powerfully with passion and deep emotion. You have a very inspirational quality that is more mystical than practical, and you have a tendency to resist all forms of control. Open to change, the Scorpio rising person flashes between devotion and adoration on one hand, and domination and ruthlessness on the other. This may make... Yeah,
just to cut in a little bit. So what ascendant is? I just double checked to make sure. It's kind of what I was saying. It's like your first impression. It's sort of like how you dawn on people. It's like when people first see me, they assume that I am like my ascendant until they get to know me. Then they're like, oh shit, this guy's not like that, because my Aries side takes over. But I also have Pluto in my first house, so that's a major. That's why I kind of look like very, very, very Plutonian. That's why I have a lot of that going on. But it's a very complicated thing, and you know, honestly, if you haven't, what's the one I use? Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, there it is. It always comes right up. Astrocharts.com. I love that site. To me, like, that one is the easiest one I've ever used, and you plug in the information and you get enough information that if you just start Googling, you'll learn a lot. I am not an astrology guy. You need a legit astrologer to really tell you all the things that I'm not telling you. So, you know,
yeah, that's like kind of going. It's like basically everybody can read the tarot, but you need somebody who like really knows the tarot to give you something deep and meaningful. Anybody can look at it and just go, "Oh yeah, you got death. You better look out for fucking rats and shit, my guy."
So, I mean, since I'm like a Virgo ascendant, so when people first encounter me, they see a very thoughtful, you know, all the things associated with Virgo stuff. Very thoughtful person, kind of earthy, all that kind of stuff, you know. So, but then they learn I'm not really like a Virgo at all. Now, I think it's my North Node. Let me see what it is. I think my North Node, that's an important one. My North Node is a Libra, which is actually, if you, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, that makes total fucking sense, because your North Node is like, your birth sign is how you start, and your North Node's how you're not how you're going to end up, but that's the direction you're traveling in. So my Aries is becoming more like a Libra. As I get older, I become more and more like a giant educated nerd, right? So that's a little rough. Very justice oriented, very, you know, very analytical, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Wish I could contribute more to that, but yeah, I'm just fucking dumb shit when it comes to all of this. Everything. Not just this, but all
Bill's
things.
really... Victoria's pointed out Bill Divendeck is very good, but he doesn't really talk to me, so I don't know why. I tried to talk to him. I tried to have, but he doesn't really. I don't know what his problem is. But there's a lot of drama lately, we'll say, and but he is. I would absolutely agree with you from everything I've seen. He knows his shit, especially when it comes to that stuff. So, yeah. But Atropa knows a lot. I don't know if Atropa's doing readings, but you know, hit Atropa up. I'm sure if you guys somehow exchange digits somehow. Atropa's on the Discord server patch, so maybe you guys could hit it off into La La Land on Discord. Drop the link there, Fleshy. If you guys hit it off on the Discord channel, you guys might be able to, like, she might be willing to give you some assistance here that I can't, because she knows her astrology very well. So.
Yep, let me plug that really quick. Oh, I hate this little Skype sidebar thing. Why do we use Skype? That is...
And don't forget, there's the whole sidereal versus tropical, and then you have to figure out why you like one over the other, and they will conflict sometimes, and why? I don't know. I don't care. Honestly, go by the one you like. I go by tropical. I ignore the sidereal because of reasons.
It's all bullshit, but bullshit is useful.
It's useful bullshit, and you know, they can still all fit together. They don't actually necessarily have to conflict, but... yeah, we'll just leave it that way.
Okay. I'm chomping at the bit here. Can I get to the next story?
No.
All right, cool. Jumping into it. I'm going to stand for this. Okay. This was written by a Reddit user called Mira Maines. That is not a little boy. Hardly anyone knows it, but Windfall, Indiana exists. It exists in such a way that when you're here, you feel like you're in a completely separate world. No shops, no restaurants, no anything. Just a gas station, a bar, a post office, and some dirt roads. It has an energy to it. Like you can feel a thickness in the air that offsets your intuition. It makes a human being's natural senses spike, like an animal who knows a predator is nearby. At least, that's how I feel personally about it. The entire place is off-putting. The people aren't much better either. I was only 13 when we moved there. My older sister was 16 and my younger one was 12. Both of them did considerably better than I did socially at school, and I was often left by myself at our new home. Mom was working quite a bit and often stayed after hours. She said it was because we needed the money, but I'm positive we did. But I think it was more so to keep her mind off the divorce. The new house was small, a 3-bed, 1-bath with a dining room and a living room. We had a fenced-in backyard and a muddy lawn with an old tree sagging over it. It was the dead of winter, and as a 13-year-old girl going through her first of many depressive episodes to come, I submerged myself into the internet. I came home every day to an empty house. made myself a snack, and planted myself on the couch to get lost in a YouTube rabbit hole until my eyes hurt. We'd only lived in the house for a couple weeks, but I was beginning to adjust to a new life. Sure, I didn't like Windfall, but I wasn't afraid of our house. School was miserable, but I cherished my time to myself. I felt as if I was getting a small taste of the adult life 13-year-old me was so eager to have. I wasn't scared to be alone, until I caught sight of him. Sometimes in my YouTube crusade, I'd get distracted by the TV and my laptop screen would fall asleep. I'd look down and jiggle my mouse and get back to it. But this time, there was a small shape standing behind me. In the doorway of my mom's bedroom, just a short apparition with noticeably spiked hair. He didn't move, but the hair on the back of my neck stood up straight, and my skin began to break out in goosebumps. As quick as he appeared, he was gone. I hadn't turned to face him, but I knew in my heart it had to be a little boy. I wasn't afraid of him. The house was old, and I felt that maybe he was just curious. I didn't get the feeling that he was bad, or that I should fear him. He just surprised me was all. It became normal to see him. Most times he was in the reflection of my screen. Other times I'd look up and see him leaning against the doorway of the dining room. He was never in color, only a black shadow that faded away as soon as I blinked. I didn't want to tell my sisters or my mom. I've been getting horribly bullied at school nearly every day, and I felt as if I were to say something, they'd make fun of me, or simply call me crazy. I didn't want them to think I couldn't handle being alone. Either way, he was harmless. At first. Soon he began to appear closer to me, or things in the house would fall over mysteriously. Cabinets would slam shut, or the TV would turn off. Curtains would sway as if someone had run their hand through them. I'd just blare my headphones and stay put on the couch, staring at my laptop and praying that somebody, anybody, would come home. I'd see him in my face and palms would begin to sweat. I could start to feel like maybe the curious spirit wasn't so innocent. Like he was teasing me or pushing his limits to see just what he could do to instill fear in me. I never tried to talk to him or communicate, and quite honestly, I had no interest in trying. The first time I ever saw him in detail, I was in bed. My little sister and I shared a room, and I had a top bunk while she was on the bottom. I began to wake in the middle of the night, sweaty with my heart racing. Each night, I'd look over the railing of my bed and see him standing in the dead center of my room, staring at my little sister as she slept. He could have only been 7 years old. He was skinny and had a red plaid button-up shirt tucked into black pants. He had spiked, bleached blonde hair and pale blue eyes. What stuck out about him was how white his skin was. He looked nearly albino, yet his lips were a shade of deep purple. I'd be too afraid to close my eyes or even to breathe. I'd wake in the nights to come holding my eyes shut because I knew when I opened them, he'd be there. Some nights, my sister wouldn't be in her bed because she was still young enough to want to be in Mom's bed. He'd just stand there still, staring, not acknowledging me or letting me know that he knew I was there, but I knew he knew. As I kept this secret, our household began to fall apart. My sisters and I were... Fucking scrolled and lost my place.
You bastard.
My sisters and I were constantly fighting. My depression was worsening and self-harm crept into my daily life. My mother began to drink heavier, and in fits of rage or sadness, she'd say things she didn't mean. She changed into a person filled with anger when she'd once been so loving and sweet. My family began to feel like strangers to me. This led to even more time in the house on my own as my sisters used their friends' houses as an escape. I had made no friends at my new school, so the only thing I could do was get away to take walks to the gas station or to play with the dog next door. Every time I'd see the little boy, I'd stop what I was doing and go sit with that dog. I'd stay put for a few hours until somebody arrived home. Things hit their peak when it came time for me to bathe. I loved baths, but for some reason when I took baths at this house, I felt nothing but anxiety. My chest would tighten and burn when I'd lay back to wash my hair. I'd feel like I couldn't bring myself back up. I'd scream for my mother because I'd often felt paralyzed with fear. Even just looking at the bathtub gave me an uneasy feeling and sent my heartbeat banging through my ears. Eventually, my anxiety of baths evolved into a full-fledged fear of water. Swimming pools, baths, lakes, it's all ruined for me. When I think back on it, it never felt as though the house had a happiness to it. Only darkness and that same energy that Windfall emitted so strongly. I was once overcome with relief when Mom let us know that she and my stepdad had worked things out and we'd be moving back home. I couldn't have gotten out of that house fast enough. The only thing I didn't want to leave behind was the neighbor's dog. I'd learned to shove those memories. The little boy's face still popped up in my dreams from time to time, but I'd gotten over my anxiety of being home alone. Mom got better, and eventually she went back to being her old self again. Time passed, and the depression got easier to manage. I'd nearly forgotten about him. We'd all been drinking around the bonfire one night, shooting the shit and talking about old memories. I was 20 now and felt that I could bring up the boy and handle whatever backlash I got from it. I asked my mom if she remembered the house and if she ever saw anything there. "Oh, for sure. That place was haunted as shit," her exact words. "Yeah," my older sister chimed in. "There was a little boy there, but he was not a little boy." I felt my heart drop to my stomach. He was evil. I'd always see him running around the dining room table or standing in Mom's doorway. That's why I was always at Olivia's, because I hated that fucking house. She continued on. I told them my story, all of it. I told them why I'd suddenly become so afraid of water and why I hated being alone. "It wasn't just him. There was an old woman there too," my mom said. "She'd stand in the dining room and tell me to get out of her house. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and she'd be standing at the end of my bed, staring at me, pissed as hell. That's why I'd get up in the middle of the night and grab your sister out of bed, so she could sleep next to me, because I was so scared. The worst time it happened, I woke up and saw that boy sitting on my dresser, swinging his legs. He hopped off the dresser, walked to my side of the bed, and jumped at me. He jumped straight at me, and then disappeared. When we left, I looked up the house, and it turns out an old lady used to own that home. She died there." "What about the little boy?" I asked. "Yeah, a little boy died in that house back in the 70s. He drowned to death." Since leaving the house, I've returned to Windfall a handful of times to visit family. The energy is still there, that heaviness and otherworldliness. As years go on, more and more ghost stories emerge from Windfall, and the people who have lived there. Native American spirits and little children. There's something about that place that falls just perfectly on a wave of paranormal possibility. It radiates with things I don't know if we as a species will ever be able to wrap our heads around. Windfall, Indiana exists, and so does everything else in it.
So I'm going to take it that wasn't written by a server person.
No. These last two stories are ones that I got from Reddit.
So that one strikes me as... Remember how I said, like, I believe that one? This one strikes me as a fanfic that's based on something. It definitely has the vibe. They're a skilled writer. They're a fantastic writer. And they're telling a great story. There's no question. And it might have been based on an experience that happened. But I don't buy that one.
That's fair.
I'm not saying it can't happen, by the way. That's not why I don't buy it. My intuition says that was a creative writing attempt.
I think that's a story to me which is definitely told in a certain way, but there are also common elements there that I see in other stories, such as the association with water. There's something fucking magical in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Blade and Cloak saying creepypasta vibes, and that's kind of what I'm saying. That's really absolutely well written, absolutely based on potentially real things. But that story was so overwritten, shall we say. There's nothing wrong with an overwritten ghost story. I'm just saying that it's too on the nose, is what I'm saying. It's too much like Zen, as a Zen master would say. It's like... I
also feel like that's how I would fuck with somebody if I was a ghost, is just be like... This is gonna be too on the nose. Nobody will ever believe
No,
you.
no, no. That's why I said it's not the things. Like it's like a psychic hit. I'm going. Nope. It seems like a fanfic, a creepy pasta. It just does. I'm gonna give that, like, on a scale of 1 to 10. The one with the clicking light. Elements of creepy pasta, but I give that like an 8. As like a lot of that story was true. This one's like a 4. Maybe they saw a ghost in their house. Maybe it was a little boy that they saw. But all these little elements, they're too contrived, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
As someone who's seen a lot of this stuff in my own time and known people who've had ghosts in their house, it doesn't usually play out that way. That's what. Now that's not objectively why I think it's a creepypasta. That's just, there's more to this than just what like I can't logically point to and say that's why it's a creepypasta. It's a vibe thing. It's like it just hits me as a vibe that says, yeah, really good story, and it does illustrate absolutely viable and realistic things I would expect. Maybe there was like an egregoric spirit that inspired this story. That's another layer that I don't often talk about, is just because you didn't see it and experience it doesn't mean that it wasn't inspired by the spirit world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, and Cameron says too detailed and drawn out, and I don't want to say that's why, because I'm a really good author and I could draw out a story like that too, and it would be completely real. But yes, that is usually a sign. When I believe a story, when it's like, yo, I don't know what the fuck, but I was walking and this fucking thing happened, and then it turned out a little boy did die. That's like a lot more likely. It just it reads less like a fanfic. It reads less like a creepypasta. That's not the reason though. It's a vibe in it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, 4 or 5 maybe. Still a good story though. Definitely a good story.
I'm also, speaking of stories, I'm going to share this one because you called out Cameron. I actually worked with that dude, and he saw me wearing this tank top. He's like, oh, hey, are you a fan of EA Coetting? I'm like, in fact, yeah, I am. That's my buddy.
Bold of him to use a name that looks like a real-life name. Hopefully that's not a real-life name, because being seen here, there's haters that will look him up. And I'm just
But no, it was funny because I'm like, oh, have you heard of D.H. Thorne? He's like, yeah, I have. Like, oh, I know you don't watch the live streams then. Because this face.
So he knew about me, but didn't know you were part of the show. Because he knew that I was with EA. That is fantastic. That is hysterical. That's funny, because I have yet to have the small world experience of who I am doing what I do in public. I have people come to me and say, oh, I know about that guy's channel. Like, EA Coetting's daughter, like, apparently all their friend, like a lot of her friends didn't know that she knew me but they found out, they heard about me because they liked this, so they've watched my videos and they're like, oh, Thorne, yeah. Apparently that happens. I don't know how, but it hasn't happened to me yet. I go to like occult bookstores and stuff all the time. No one's been like, you're that guy. Maybe I'm letting my 5,000 subs go to my head. 5,000 people out of the millions and the billions in the world is not anything. But I feel like if you guys are having this, why am I not having this? I want this to happen.
And also, Cameron corrected me. I probably mistold some elements of that story.
Oh, see, now Cameron's he broke my heart. I thought Cameron knew who I was first.
Oh no, he did.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm also waiting for that small world recognition. I thought that was gonna be the time, man.
I think I need 10 times the subs, and then we'll. So get to freaking sharing my channel, guys. Like, share, and subscribe this if you're here right now. Do it. All right.
Okay.
The viewers just dropped off. We got like 3 viewers now. One went away.
All right. I want to jump into another one. I think you will enjoy this one more, but by saying that, I know what magic I will wrought upon you. This one is also from Reddit. It's from Rivznik. The title is "You May See Them Too." I'm a 25-year-old female.
Creepypasta. No, I'm just kidding.
No. They said it's a true story. DH.
Yeah.
It's real.
Okay. It's on the internet, so it's true. Gotcha.
Yeah, you think somebody would just come on here and tell lies?
I got to forgive myself for thinking that.
Say I'm.
Hold on, let me get my Ghostbuster here. Hold on.
Oh Jesus! Holy. Okay, well. Thanks.
Rest in peace, your dogs.
I don't need to shit anymore. Fuck, that caught me by surprise.
See, that's something. Microphones, they pick up different tones stronger than others. I'm convinced, because that's not loud.
No, it wasn't. I have you minimized on the back so I could read this thing.
Oh,
so
I
had no visual cue that something was about to happen. Just, I'm gonna get my Ghostbuster. What the fuck does that mean? Okay, so I'm a 25-year-old female. I've been a caregiver for 6 years now. I've worked in a few different places, retrained and reintroduced to new residents. The first CBRF, I have no idea what that acronym is, I've ever worked for was a 13-bed facility. A CBRF takes in more than just geriatrics who can no longer live alone. It handles anyone
that's
from
something facility, something CBR.
I'm going to assume the RF stands for rehabilitation facility.
Yeah, probably rehabilitation facility. Cognitive something.
Cock and ball rehabilitation.
Cock and ball.
CBT. A CBRF takes in more than just geriatrics who can no longer live alone. It handles anywhere from addicts to dementia to old age. In order to become a DSP, you have to go through about 4 weeks of training. Direct support professionals go through basic first aid, administering medications, basic fire safety, and dementia support classes. All of the training classes never quite prepare you for being on the floor. During dementia training, they taught us about dementia with Lewy bodies. It's a degenerative disease that causes auditory and visual hallucinations. We ran through different scenarios of how to redirect a resident while they are having these episodes. One example was of the residents chasing after their past loved ones, when they would wander away from the home and end up lost. We had to stay vigilant in order to keep them safe. The main thing was that we were never to discredit them or their hallucinations. We were taught to play along and redirect, telling them, "No, it's made up," or "No one is there," can cause them to fly into violent rage or break down into inconsolable tears. When I first started on the floor, I met one of the first dementia patients right away. Her name was Beverly. My first interaction with her was her coming up behind me and whispering to me, "You better take care of them, or I'll have to kill you." She then pointed at the floor as if somebody was standing there. I nervously laughed and ran to my administrator's office. She explained to me that Beverly was harmless, but she often saw children. She reminded me of my training video and to play along, but then added, "You may see them too." I continued working there for a few more months without much of any incident. I worked the second shift, so there were many uncomfortable nights. While vacuuming the hallways, I heard the door alarm go off. Every time someone opened one of the main doors to outside, an alarm would ring. I looked out the window to see Beverly, in nothing but a nightgown, in the middle of Wisconsin winter. She was bent over at the waist, walking slowly, as if a small child was holding her hand and leading her down the parking lot. I quickly ran outside to catch up with her and tried to consult her. She was confused when she saw me, and asked where the little girl went. I explained to her that her mom came to pick her up, and quickly brought her back inside. A few weeks later, some of the other staff were talking between shift change, and I overheard them talking about Beverly's little girl. Turned out I wasn't the only one that had seen Beverly have an episode. But then they went to talk about the daycare next door. I hadn't been working there for long, so one of the veteran DSPs went on to explain about the original daycare that used to be in the new one's place. I guess it burned down, and some of the kids got hurt. The veteran DSP wondered if there was any correlation between what Beverly was seeing and the old daycare. The rest of the group of DSPs went on to talk about weird sightings they had seen in our building. Always catching glimpses of something short out of the corner of their eye, things going missing, or even being misplaced. We had even had a resident wake up screaming in the middle of the night, saying he saw a woman on his ceiling staring at him. When I started my shift that night, I was left with a veteran DSP. All other DSPs had left for the night. I stayed in the kitchen cleaning up after day shift, while the vet was passing meds. I heard the back door open and ran to the windows in the back hallway to look. It was Beverly. It was snowing really hard that night, so it was hard to see out, but she was in her bent-over stance, being led away by something again. This time, I saw another person with her, actually holding onto her hand. A little girl with blonde hair. I yelled for the vet, and we both ran outside to look for Beverly. We looked all around the building and found nothing. The vet asked if I was sure of what I saw. I swore that I had seen Beverly. I even heard the door alarm go off again. The vet suggested we go back inside and check if maybe she got back in without us noticing. When we got to her room, we both had the air escape us. We found Beverly on the floor, dead. I won't go into too much detail of how she looked, but it still haunts me to this day. She was holding a photo. It was a picture of her daughter when she was little, and her daughter had long blonde hair.
Yeah, again, I give that like a 4, a 3. I'm pretty sure that's a creepypasta. Too contrived, again. And Danar says these little blonde kids again. Why is it always little blonde kids when it's a ghost? Like, what the fuck? All right, let's put it to a vote. Let's do that from now on. All these stories, we need to put them to a vote. Like, creepypasta or legit? You know, thumbs up, thumbs down. Which you think it is? I'm going to thumbs it down saying I think it's a creepypasta. Good story. That's not a criticism of the story. I'm saying I think it's a creepypasta.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's when I err more on the side of creepypasta. I like the story though.
Sure. No, it's a good setup for you know, a good movie. I see dead people. Let's put it to it. So everybody in chat, if you think it's legit, thumbs down. We get 1 thumbs down. I should wait to give my opinion until everybody else gives theirs because people might be influenced. So CM Hilnakainian says thumbs down, so he thinks it's a creepypasta. Blade and Cloak says creepypasta. That's 2. That's a lot of us are saying creepypasta so far. Atropa says lots of details. That's often a clue that it's a creepypasta, by the way. I'm not saying as a rule, but it is absolutely. Yeah, another 1, 2, 3, 4 people creepypastas, 5 people creepypastas.
And see, this is why I like the idea of people submitting their own stories because I feel like those won't be as creepypasta-ish.
There's a thing where I'm not saying too many details automatically means creepypasta. I'm saying that creepypastas tend to be more detailed than real stories.
Yeah. Trying to, because extra details that's like the weird fucking backwards logic of the thing is that the too many details can sometimes be there to try to validate it, where sometimes these stories that really sound like they have a lot of plot holes and so to speak. Those are the ones that seem way more valid. Like, yeah, that could work.
Yeah. The title in itself, you may see them too. Definitely. I mean, that's... here's the thing, okay? So it's pretty much unanimous except for Vittorius because he likes to be the backwards wheel. Pretty unanimous. Sounds like everybody's saying that it's probably, and I agree, it's creepy. Like my first gut, like especially that whole "you may see them too," is not just the title when it's like the aide says it. Like no, all right. But anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, guys in the chat. Especially for those of you who've had real paranormal experiences. Number one, they're usually simplistic. It's usually something that happens 2 or 3 details. Like the taco shells flying off the rack. There's no, and then this, and then my uncle, and then blah, 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 blah. And then we found out, but it really was a taco man. You know, that's creepypasta shit. Real paranormal experiences are, number one, almost always a little surreal. Like,
yeah.
It's going to be something weird like taco shells, or it's going to be I was taking a shit and the bathroom door banged for no fucking reason. It's going to be something that is far less convenient. And when I say convenient, I mean contrived.
That's actually one of the interesting things when I was picking out stories for this is that the ones that I believe the most are also the most uninteresting. And, I have one in here that I'll probably end with it, or it will be one of the last ones that it's like, I totally believe it, that it happened, but it's not as interesting as, the fucking ghost boy giving you fear of water, holding
Which
you
is
down.
why I'm probably going to believe this. Let's hear it. Let's see if I agree with you. Let's see if I
Okay.
agree. Yep.
This one actually did not come from Reddit. This one came from survivalistboards.com.
Yeah, fuck Reddit. That's like the other Facebook. Fuck Reddit.
Well, we'll work in tiers. Reddit still has its place. We fuck Facebook and fuck all the other ones first, and then we'll move on to Reddit.
I'd just like to push a button and have them all vanish tonight. Can I do that? And just say fuck it all? Fuck all of them? Can we do that?
Oh, that would
Look,
be nice.
4chan's all we need. I'm just kidding. That's a little too...
I, for one, choose death. Okay, hold on.
Taco Namicon. No. Did you say... No, they said it right. Taco Namicon. Yes. Yeah. Perfect. Will and Van. Perfect comment. Taco Namicon.
Okay.
We call it the Namicon around here when we're hungry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were referencing Camilla's book for a second. So from Get Logicated on survivalistboards.com. Creepiest thing I've encountered outdoors was at work 2 years ago. It was very early in the morning, around 2 to 3 a.m., and I was in a very open area waiting for my boss to return with some equipment. As I was waiting, I got that feeling like I was being watched by something that didn't want me there, or had some intent on harming me. I stood up and looked around. The moon was very bright that night, and I could clearly see all the way to the tree lines, probably 50 yards on both sides of me. Nothing around. I calmed down a bit and took my pack off. Okay, he just wrote that weird. I'm not having a stroke. I calmed down a bit and took my pack off my back to get my drinks out. As I opened my drink, I hear this whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound flying through the air from behind me. It was like the sound that a stick makes if you throw it overhand. I literally dove out of the way, with my bag falling to the ground and my drink flying through the air, spilling as I jumped away. I recover from my diving experience and take my radio out of my bag to radio my boss. I go, I'm not trying to freak you out or anything, but I'm on my way back to the shop. I just had something thrown at me. As I'm talking to him, I'm looking around on the snowy ground for anything that could have been hurled at me. There was nothing on the ground but snow. I had no idea what the hell was going on at this point. His reply of, I've already got a head start on you. I'll see you there, sounded out of breath like he was running. I gather my stuff and start hauling ass back to the shop. I get back and meet up with my boss, and he's pacing back and forth in our shop, freaking out. I get him to calm down, and he tells me he was on his way back up to me when he got the same feeling I got before something got thrown at him. He said after he got the feeling, he stopped to look around and something clearly two-legged started walking towards him, barely crunching in the snow. Then he said it started running at him, but there was nothing around him in sight. All the sounds of movement stopped, and he froze to listen for more sounds. Then he said a hot breath was hitting the back of his neck as he proceeded to freak the fuck out. He said he ran the whole way back to the shop, and about halfway back is where he heard me on the radio. The crazy part about this whole thing is the area where we were working has several burial mounds in the woods from Native Americans. Apparently there also used to be an altar of some kind made out of stone that was buried during a construction project a few decades ago. I have two theories for this incident. One, we both simultaneously had a 15-minute trip on acid. Or two, I had a ghost hatchet thrown at me and my boss by a ghost native stalking him as a nice way of saying keep the fuck out.
I'm gonna say, okay. I'm gonna let you guys vote first, but my mind's already made up. So everybody in the comments, thumbs up if you think it's real enough, or thumbs down if you think it's pretty much mostly, if not entirely, fake. So creepypasta or reasonably true story. So we'll give everybody a minute. So give us a thumbs up or say what you think, and then we'll come back. And I've already got my mind made up. So we'll give it a second. We'll watch Flesh Priest drink while.
I'm just imagining. You know, he didn't say there was a sound associated. Well, the whoosh, but I like to imagine it's that dude screaming from the Disney Pocahontas movie from the tree line when he sees the Blondie start macking with Pocahontas. Just.
So I'll wait for 2 or 3 more votes, and I'll give you guys my answer. I don't want it to be like I'm stealing you guys' answer. Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm gonna say that's 782. That's definitely leaning towards the I believe it side because I think they embellished quite a bit. But they embellished and they simplified it. But I actually don't doubt the story. I think that something like what they told actually happened. I absolutely believe something like that. So, yep, CM says, meh, reasonably true. Reasonably true. I'll give it a pass. I would investigate that. Like, I would go with my ghost hunting gear to investigate that. We'll put it that way.
I like what Dan R. said. He gave a thumbs up and said, they were on acid. But yeah,
Dan R.'s got a good sense of humor, man. He makes a lot of funny comments.
That's the thing I always get, like... I know I've already talked about this, but that's really not as interesting. But I believe that so much more.
Mm-hmm. I think that their interpretation of it is where they lose me. But something happened that I feel very, very confident about. Because I've had weird shit just like that happen. So that's what I'm saying. That it's not just that it's happened to me. It's that it has the ring of a real ghost story about it. Or not even a ghost, just a real supernatural story. Because that's how they are. They're not... and then I found out the little boy did drown in my garage. It's like, okay,
and then
all
he
right.
said 7 days.
Whoever wrote that almost hit that with the whole Indian burial mound stuff. But honestly, that doesn't invalidate it because that is a very common thing. You'll find out there's a burial mound or there's something around there or a cat cemetery or some shit. No joke, that stuff happens because egregores form around those. They tend to be located easily. I'm being locational when I shouldn't be, but we associate spirit with those places, so we encountered them there. So yeah, I'm gonna say something about the light switchy one hits me more as like an 8. This one's more for some reason like a 7. Like it's a little bit lower probability. But I'm gonna say, yep, I agree. Thumbs up. Most likely, the guy believed it. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think he definitely had an experience. And you know what? All good stories are embellished a little bit.
Yes, that's not the problem, for sure. Like Atrope is saying, because it's not all dramatized out. Because a lot of times when someone dramatizes it out, it's like if there was a nugget of truth in there, you've lost it with the embellishment. So even if it's a true story, you've made it. That's why I say 2, 3 or something instead of a 0, because anything's possible. But if you have me tell my ghost stories, they're never going to be all these embellishments that explain this and then the punchline of and then they drowned in my garage. That's not what's gonna happen. It's gonna be something where it's like, fuck if I know, but that shit was fucking weird, dude. That's the sign of a real story to me because just plain and simple. It's almost like, I'm not saying that real ghost stories don't happen to good writers. I'm saying that good writers often make up good ghost stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need to rest my voice for a minute. We actually got a question from Wyatt earlier. Do you want to?
Oh fuck!
You want
Is he still here?
I don't know. I haven't seen him in chat for a hot minute, but
yeah, maybe he fell asleep. We'll do a question or so, and I like this. We're ending a little bit quicker than usual thing. I like keeping people a little hungry for my content. So we'll see how this goes. What's this question? We'll see how long I run with that question.
Yeah, from Wyatt Coverdale. Hope you're still here because this came quite earlier in the stream. He said, assuming magic follows the path of least resistance, if you did magic for something that is impossible within the laws of physics, would the universe make an exception? If not, why?
Let me do my Rupert Spira thing where I take a minute and process my own answer. how to attack your question.
Here we see Thorne in his natural habitat.
Yeah, I'm just chilling out right now.
Analyzing.
Actually, I'm not. I'm actually shutting my.
Tzu.
I'm actually stopping my thoughts. That's actually what I'm doing. I'm not thinking. I'm trying to go to. My brain's a little revved hearing the stories, and I'm repeating the question in my head. So I'm actually trying to silence the bickering bullshit in my head.
DH attempted a clever ruse to make the people think that he wasn't analyzing Sun Tzu's The Art of War in anticipation of attacking this question with great ferocity.
Ferocity. Yeah.
What he said.
So, all right. The reason that magic always seems to follow the path of least resistance, I originally used to believe because I retain a rational element. Now I realize that the main reason that magic follows a path of least rational resistance is because your egoistic psyche cannot handle something that is too concrete of a proof that you're God all at once. There are probably physical laws that magic doesn't break, but those physical laws are illusory on some level. So the issue that we're having here is that you still believe, not saying you still believe, but your question implies that a spoon can be bent. You cannot bend a spoon because a spoon is not real. That's I hate to quote movies, but Matrix is more than a movie. That shit's like that's like a primer on some pretty crazy shit that's true.
Yeah, if you want some evidence that Matrix is more than just a movie, it was pretty much directly inspired by Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, which you should read.
And wasn't Grant Morrison a chaos magician, if I remember correctly? Am I getting my signals
crossed?
crossed?
Nope, you're right. The entire work of The Invisibles was a big hyper sigil he made.
Right. Motherfucker knew some shit. So no. Let's take the cart and put it behind the fucking horse. Instead of assuming that you can do the impossible, or that you can't do the impossible, learn to recognize that reality as you understand it is completely and utterly illusory. So let's put it in the context of a dream. It's a little bit better to analyze and parse if we analyze and parse this as a dream. When you dream at night, everything you experience in the dream is possible. What I mean by that is, if you chop your left hand off and it starts walking around in front of you, you might be a little shocked, but a part of you will accept that that's possible. You're not just going to be like, no, that's just not possible. It can't fucking happen. That cannot happen. You will somehow intuitively just accept that's possible. When you have a lucid dream, you will start to experience things that by your daytime world are still very impossible. However, and this is a very important key, even in your utmost surrealist ass dreams, there is still rational limitations to everything. So last night I had a dream where I can't explain how I got here. I was in this house and it was like a party's atmosphere that was going on, and then it turned into like this weird game where people would get like teleported into, actually it was the dishes, Ajna. People would get teleported into this game zone where it was real, like you die if you fucked up. And I get teleported there, and somehow I got glitched and ended up completely safe. And it was so fucking surreal and awesome. And I remember I was running at this thing, and I jumped off and I fell. And I fell and I fell and I fell. And I was thinking to myself, I gotta put my feet the right way when I land or else I'm gonna die. And I land like a superhero, and it's fucking cool. And I look up and it's like 100 yards up or however far I fell. I'm like, wow, that's cool. But the point I'm trying to make is, even in that surreal ass situation, the laws of physics mostly worked. That is to say, there was still limitations and laws. I didn't just fly, I fell. So what I'm saying to you is, even in a completely dream state where you have the power to do everything and are doing everything, because everything in the dream is you doing it, At least if we believe what neuroscience says. So like the house that I was in that dream, that was a part of my consciousness that I was in. That wasn't an actual. There's no house. That's consciousness that I'm seeing. That's my own mind. That's my own memory. That's my own, internal thing. And I'm doing it all, and I'm not aware that I'm doing any of it. I don't know that I made that house. In the middle of that dream, that house is there, and I have no idea that I put it there. But the house has rules. It's got doors, it's got floors, I gotta walk, the people talk, things happen, there's rules. There's always fucking rules. And those rules are always internally consistent with the dream every time. And Blade and Cloak saying that they fly. Of course you can fly in dreams. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying there's still logical consistency. Let me put it to you this way. So you fly in a dream. Can you fly while you're walking in a dream? Why not? Fleshy, can you fly and walk at the exact same time in a dream? And if not, why not?
Nope.
You're all
I've
powerful
never
in a
had
dream,
that
right?
experience.
You're
Yeah.
all powerful in a dream. Why can't you do that? So there's still a limitation. There's still a law. There's still conceptual law in your dreams. And here's another wild thought for you guys who maybe didn't think about this. Next time you're in a dream and drop something, why does it fall at all? And why does it fall exactly as you'd expect it to fall in real life? Does your brain know physics that well that it could model it that well like a computer modeled it? You can model a war with bullets flying around and all kinds of shit going on, and you can model an explosion perfectly, and there's no doubt to it. You can smell, you can taste, you can touch, all the things that you feel like you can. It's a little muted. For me, it's a little muted, but it's still there. Like if I shoot myself in the head, I feel pain, but I don't feel the pain of death, right? I still have a sensation of things. So what I'm getting at is the rules, the laws of nature. In our waking world, we are in a contextual awareness where things must have very strict and vivid rules. There will always be rules, no matter whether you're on the waking side of the dream state or the sleeping side of the dream state. There's always rules, limitations. So, like I said in Become the Maelstrom, artwork requires limitation. You cannot do art without something limiting you. Technically, it's impossible to do anything without a limit, but my point is, art becomes art when there's a little bit of a limit going on. Without some kind of a canvas to limit where you can paint, you don't have art. Without a palette of colors that is finite, you can't paint. Without 7 notes, if there was an infinite number of notes, you know what I'm saying, Fleshy, because technically you could probably say that the scales go forever in every direction, but without 7 specific notes that we like, because you could say there's other notes, but we like 7 specific ones. Well, 10, whatever it really is. You know what I'm saying. You can answer this.
Yeah, it's 7 notes in the our Western music scales, and then loops back around to the top of the octave.
Right. So we've got these 7 divisions, 7 colors,
in
7
a key, I should specify.
Yeah, so we've got these 7 notes, and we have 7 colors in a rainbow, even though there's infinite colors, and blah blah blah. The point is that there is a kind of limitation that we need for art to make sense, and there's a limitation we need for mortality to make sense. But it's not enough to just say you believe anything. I've had people say, "Oh, Thorne, the reason why your magic is limited to rational things is because you believe this and that," as if they don't have that limit. My challenge to that person is always go walk off a rooftop and show me when you can fly. Well, yeah. So don't tell me about belief, because belief is not what you think it is. You can believe something all day long and you still test it. You can believe that you're going to get from here to the store and back perfectly safe. You still put your belt on. Well, I do.
And you should.
And you should. So belief is not power. Belief is an excuse. Belief is faith. Belief is a division. It's a denial. If you believe something, you're denying all the other things. You can believe in one hand and shit in the other and show me which one gets full first. You can test this every day. Real belief is not something you can think about. Real belief, what you're really looking for is gnosis, not belief. Gnosis of something is completely different, and until you're able to really sense the difference, you can't say, well, I believe in it enough and therefore it'll work. No. Bad. No. That's egoistic. I believe in. No. Egoistic denial bullshit. You must have gnosis that it's going to happen. It's a much deeper word. It's a belief without form, substance, identity, ideation, logic, or reason. It's that true leap of faith. Because a true leap of faith isn't faithful. It's gnosis. It's you know that you won't fall. Not a belief, no. Not a ignorance, I believe I won't fall because logic says this. No, it is your higher self is just like, this is how it is. And for whatever reason, which there is no easy explanation. There is no easy explanation for it. For whatever reason, the spectrum of mortality that we see, because mortality is like a spectrum. The spectrum of mortality we see defines what we can see, what we can believe, what we can't believe. It's like if you put rose-colored glasses on and you wear them long enough, the world just becomes rose-colored and you stop seeing rose color. That rose color becomes the new white or whatever, the new base of your reality. You no longer see, like, it doesn't look rosy anymore. It just becomes that rose to you. So, meanwhile, you've limited your vision so that everything's got a rosy tint to it, but you let that go after a while. So, let's not forget, and I think CM, let's see what CM's saying. He might be saying what I'm about to say. The mind is where thoughts come and go. The brain has to interpolate these things, signals of the mind. About. So let's really define the mind and the brain for a moment. The mind is not your thoughts. Everybody take notes, okay? The mind is not your thoughts. The mind is the aperture of awareness. It's more like a telescope or a microscope or a rolled up toilet paper tube that limits your vision. The mind is your focus of attention. That's what the mind is. The mind is not the thoughts. The mind is not the feelings. It is none of the things that you experience. That is not the mind. The mind is the attenuation of attention into a very specific pinpoint of experience. The brain is a blob of goo. And within that blob of goo is a bunch of shit going on that produces electrochemical signals and electrostatic signals and probably light that bounces back and forth. And ultimately, it's part of the quantum field, and the quantum field is the ether. So what is the mind doing? The mind is not, like we often say the mind is focused on our body. Our consciousness is focused on our body. That's not true. The mind is not focused on your body. The mind is focused on the brain. Consciousness is focused on the brain. And the brain is relaying things from its body to consciousness through the mind. The mind being the little aperture, the little, as I often do, like the all-seeing eye. When you look at the picture of the all-seeing eye and you got the pyramid, it's not really a pyramid. That's meant to be an aperture. 3 points of, because a triangle is the simplest shape which can be a door. 3 points of separation, 3 points of ontology, 3 points of identity. You start with a point, doesn't work, can't see through that. It's a zero space object. 2, you got a line, can't see through that either. There's not enough space. 3 points, now it opens up in a doorway. And the all-seeing eye sees through that. That 3 points of contact is the mind. That it's a little trinity window. That's the mind. So you see through the mind into the brain. And unfortunately, language fails because this is not literal. This is metaphorical and abstract. So consciousness sees through the mind, and what it sees is the activity in the brain. How it sees it, I don't know exactly. All I know is that that's what it sees. And it can shift its awareness around in that brain. Because you can do this right now consciously. Every single one of you right now can focus your attention anywhere in your body if you really put your mind to it, and mostly ignore, if not completely ignore, the rest of your body. Anyone can do this. If you can shift your attention around through your body, and if you accept the non-dual truth, that means that your attention is shifted to this brain, and by externalization, the rest. So the mind is not a process. The mind is not your thoughts. The mind is the conscious director of attention. And thoughts are things that arise in awareness and consciousness as an experience that it's having. Of itself, ultimately, because consciousness is conscious of itself, there's only one thing. It's non-dual. There's only consciousness or chaos. Chaos is conscious, and conscious is chaos. So it's conscious of itself. But it's conscious only of a very small piece of itself. And that piece is this brain. So that's why it's really important, even in my new book, I'm very specific. The brain and the mind are not the same.
CM says, wait, doesn't consciousness experience the mind and the mind sees through the ego? If so, wasn't what I said have some correctness to it?
I mean, I might have misread him. I kind of only read it quick. The mind is where thoughts come and go. The brain has to interoperate. Is that a word? I know a lot of words. I've never seen that word before. Interoperate.
It sounds right. If you didn't question it, I would have just accepted it as real.
The brain has to, I think he meant interpret. The brain has to interpret these signals of the mind and create too much cause and effect going on. Let's rewind. The brain doesn't actually do anything. I'm making it sound like it does because that's the only way language will work. The reality is, if time and space are an illusion in the sense that, yes, time and space are real things, but they're illusory the way we understand them. So time doesn't pass. Time doesn't pass. Time is not a flow that we're dragged along with. Matter and energy doesn't move around. It is all a static block time universe, which means nothing is moving. That means the brain is not moving. That means all the little particles in your brain don't move. What's actually happening, it's more like a movie reel where your consciousness is shifting its attention, because there's no language for this, moment to moment on infinitely small slices of reality. Like a picture book or something, getting, like an animation. Every frame of the animation is a still frame. Except in this hyperdimensional understanding, every frame is encoded with all of the data, including the forces and everything else that's going on. So when I drop this lighter, it doesn't actually drop. There's actually an infinite number of lighters between here and the floor, and there's an infinite number of variations. This lighter's over there, this lighter's over there. But my consciousness is following this version of it. It really helps if you learn to understand and extrapolate a 2D universe and a 3D universe and a 4D universe and a 5D universe and so on, and what that looks like when you pass one object, say a 3-dimensional object, through a 2-dimensional plane, you get what looks like something appearing out of nothing and then disappearing into nothing. Time looks exactly like that. Time looks exactly like a 3-dimensional object passing through a 2-dimensional object. You see an infinitely thin 2-dimensional sliver of reality that's called now. And that now is changing and evolving, but it's not. It looks like it is. Time doesn't move, consciousness moves. So that means the brain is actually not doing anything in response to anything. This is how you resolve, in my opinion, determinism and probability. Ultimate chaos, it transcends both because it's perfectly static. It doesn't move. The reason why I say it's perfectly static is because every mystical ontology will tell you that the highest state is perfect peace and bliss, perfect calm, perfect nirvana, emptiness. You're the center of the wheel. You realize you're not going around. The wheel is... There is no movement. Total peace. It's oblivion, but oblivion's not bad. Oblivion's total peace and bliss. So chaos is at total peace with itself. There's no movement. There's no shifting. There's no currents. There's no law and order or effects and cause, and all that shit is that's the illusion of Maya. The reality is unattainable enigma that is unmoving. The concept of movement has no place there. Consciousness is a shifting of attention through itself. That's why we get this mortal experience, because we've limited our consciousness to a tiny point and shifting it around like you're reading a book. So, the brain does not cause anything. But because of our limitations of language, there's not an easier way for me to put it than to say consciousness focuses on the brain. What I really mean is, you all know what a fractal is, I hope.
Oh yeah. If you don't, then you haven't been watching the streams enough.
Reality is a hyperdimensional fractal. It's not 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. It's probably 25,000 billion, who knows how many dimensions. Like, imagine a fractal equation that's got a variable that will allow for, I don't know, at least 9, 10 dimensions, if not 20, 30, whatever. By dimensions, I don't mean universes. I mean directions. Directions within itself. Possibly at right angles to themselves. Who the fuck knows? These directions, these dimensions, we only understand in our plane 4 of them. And if you look, each one of them is 2-dimensional. Up and down is a 2-dimensional thing. It's literally a line going up and down of infinite thinness. Up and down. It's very simple. Left and right, 2-dimensional object again. It's just a line. Actually, it's a 1-dimensional, whatever. I forget. I have to look up my geometry. Forward and back, again, just a line. You only get a 3-dimensional experience when they're all together. Now you've got a block. Time is also 2-dimensional. It's another line. So when you add that to those 3 dimensions, you get a 4-dimensional object. Space-time. And there's probably a lot more of them. So nothing is moving, nothing is changing, your brain is not processing, all of that's an illusion. So let's go back to the fractals that I was starting to talk about. Let's say you create a fractal. And while you're zooming in on that fractal and making it evolve, because it's not changing, when you create a fractal, nothing changes. It's a static thing. It's a static printout.
It's all kaleidoscopes all the way down.
And so as you're zooming in, because you have to zoom in to make it evolve into the cool shit you see. As you zoom into it, it looks like it's growing and morphing and changing. So in a two-dimensional fractal, it just looks like it's spreading out. Kind of like the Big Bang. You have this thing spreading out. And when you look at that fractal, your eyes are going to be drawn to things. I want you to watch any fractal you can find on YouTube. Go find a fractal and look where your eyes are drawn. If it's not drawn at just the center, because that's just where it looks like you're supposed to look, look at things that develop in that fractal and look for patterns you recognize. You might see a little cross, you might see a little stick figure. Your brain is like seeing a stick figure in that fractal and focusing your attention on it for a while and zooming into it till it goes away. That's your brain. Your brain's not actually moving. You're zooming through the fourth dimensional picture of a three-dimensional brain object. No, CM, you listen. I'm not rambling. No, CM, no. So you're seeing this brain idea is an illusion. The brain doesn't do anything. The brain doesn't cause anything. The brain doesn't, it's not a source for anything. The brain is, it's a shadow on the wall.
Not to distract, I figured I'd pull up a fractal video.
Instead of arguing, CM, just write your own book, and if people like it, they'll read it. Trust me, man. If you think so whose mind is it that has these powers? You said I. Whose mind is it that has these powers? That's ego talking. You really desperately want the mind to have this capability because that validates your experience as a self, as a limited self. You're welcome to the beliefs that you have. I'm just saying that I've been down those rabbit holes. That's not, they don't lead to where I'm going. If I'm reading, I mean, I might be reading you wrong, but no. The brain is part of my, but they work because I want them to work. No. We focus on the brain. See those fractal images that Fleshy has on the picture on the screen right now? Look at how they evolve. Look how they look like they're moving. Look how complicated they look. Look at how deeply they wiggle and vibrate. Look at all of that. Don't they look alive to you? How living does that look to you? Does that not look like it's a living thing evolving and growing and morphing and doing stuff? If you stared at that long enough, I promise you, if that is all you ever saw, if you were born and someone had hooked that image up to your brain and it was a complicated enough fractal, you would begin to believe that that was a living thing responding to your attention. You would begin to believe that you were doing something in there. You would believe that that was reality. As that little swirly is forming on the screen, you'd be like, of course that's what's happening because that's the rational outcome that would have. Of course, I'm walking that direction. That's time. Time's moving. I'm moving through time. Ah, look, it's living. Oh, it's giving birth to something else. Oh, that's my sister. You would develop this surreal belief that that's living and alive, and you would believe that you have some control over it. I promise you. Especially when that fractal is a hyperdimensional fractal that's more than 2 dimensions, more than 3 dimensions, more than 4 dimensions. If there's enough dimensions to that fractal, every single goofy ass thing that we see in our world would appear out of nothingness and return to nothingness. And it would look deterministic, but also probabilistic because there's so many possible things. Look at that fractal anywhere on the screen. Look left, look right. If no matter where you look, you could focus your attention on any spot there and have a completely different universe. And it would all appear probabilistic when it's next to each other. But again, that fractal's not moving. It's just an animation because you're zooming into it. Let me put it to you this way. You're watching this image. What role does your brain have on making that image do anything? It has none. But it looks vivid and alive. And if you watched it long enough, you know why you start to think like you're doing it? Because it's got a little element of predictability to it. I don't know why I did the Italian thing, probably because I'm hitting my Italian phase of the stream. As you're zooming in on that fractal, there's a prediction element involved. If you have a state of primordial forgetfulness where you've forgotten you're looking at a fractal and you've forgotten enough of what you see, if you're detached enough from the reality that it's a fractal and you're not doing it, that it's not just on the screen, your ego is going to start saying, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. Imagine you're born as an infant with that in front of you. It's going to grab on to it and attach to it as an ego sooner or later and start feeling responsible for the things that it's seeing in it. It is absolutely inevitable. So long as it's not developmentally fucked up because it's just looking at a fractal, obviously. Like that's a caveat. That's overthinking it, of course. It's Plato's cave. The fractal edition. If Plato understood what fractals were, if you could bring Plato forward in time and have him exist now and have him have access to the stuff we have now, it wouldn't be Plato's cave, it would be Plato's fractal. So again, I don't mean to. I love you, Helnikinian, but
I think this is the best shit. Iron sharpening iron.
I'm just hoping that he could be right. I'm just saying I don't see it at all. I've been down that path. It doesn't lead to where. No, I don't think we're lost in the lack of non-dual language. I think I'm explaining it very well. I honestly, this isn't one of those things where it's like, oh, well, we just can't explain. We both disagree. No. I think I'm explaining it quite well. Maybe you're trying to say the same thing and you're not. I don't know. Maybe you see it completely and you don't know how to explain it yet. That's fine. Keep working on it. Maybe you know an answer I don't, and you'll figure it out and be able to put it out. And I'll go, nope, that's good. I like that. But here's the final rub. And here's the one thing where we will say what you just said makes sense. Everything I just said is just a cow shitting itself and chewing cud. It doesn't really mean anything. I'm trying to label something that is enigmatically unlabelable. I'm trying to point at something using idiotic little pictures and stupid words. So that's where you're right. It is a lack of a non-dual language that hurts us. But I don't think that the flaw here is that I lack. This is something that's been brewing for a long time. And if you look it up, there's probably a bunch of people who see it too. Like every time I think I've discovered something, you go, oh my God, I have this new understanding of reality. I must be the next Buddha or some dumb bullshit, which is always dumb when you think that, of course. I'll start doing research on it to validate the things that I'm talking about. I'll be like, well, I better look up fractal this and that and blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, some asshole has some version of what I'm saying just a little different. You know, like everyone says, D.H. Thorne is Alan Watts with demons. Maybe a little bit less polite, too. Maybe not as well-spoken, but yeah, the same kind of guy.
You think I'm everyone. I love you.
So, you know, and I don't even like saying, like, Serpent and Sophia saying we created. I don't even like the word created. I think it's always been there. It's timeless. It's always been there. I think the act of creation is actually an act of discovery. It's not an act of creation. I don't think we can create. I think that's a misunderstanding. I think that everything that is has always been. It's totally timeless, and instead we are discovering it, not creating it. It feels like creation, though, because we're ignorant. We think like it never existed before. So we think we created it, or that's the ego side, but we think it must be created because we're ignorant of its timelessness. It was fleshy the whole time, Victorious. You're right. That fractal is fleshy. So here's something I want you guys to do. If you've got a computer at hand or you're able to look away without turning the stream off, go Google Block Time Universe and go Google what you would look like if all time was a solid object. So I want you to imagine for a moment what you would look like if you could see your entire life in one shot. Well, first of all, that would be a blinding light. You wouldn't see anything. So we got to stretch it out. Okay, so let's stretch out your life into a timeline. Okay, let's stretch it out. So you've got, on this end, you can't even say where you begin. So we're going to have to pick an arbitrary point where you begin. We're going to have to say when the sperm and the egg hit, and then we form out of that. Okay? Okay, so we'll start with that zygote. Because we have to accept that before that zygote, there's another timeline where you're all this material that has to form into that zygote first. So there's your zygote. We'll start there just to be polite, to make it rational. So here's your little zygote. It's a little point on this end of the line. And down at this end of the line, it's not a point, it's a body that spreads out and disperses into atoms in the ether as it disintegrates and is eaten by bugs and shit. So your body starts and it makes this a little baby like a big snake. And I think CM just said like a snake. Yes. A big snake. And it fades away into nothing on that end. Interestingly enough, that's being really polite because the actual fact is, where do you even define where your body begins and ends? If you're going by the stuff that's in it, as that little snake goes, you actually have to take into account all the matter that comes in and out of it that whole time. So you're actually talking about a point and then an ever-expanding cloud with a hard center in the middle that looks like you, and this clouds of dust and air and all the shit and piss and everything you've ever drank and ate just going in and out and just makes this big bubble of possibility that's you, with this hard little nugget in the center that looks like your body going through time. You're a ridiculous object. That's assuming there's just one timeline, just one universe with only one outcome. Exactly, Serpent. There is no before. There's no before, there's no after, there's no creation, there's no ending. It's not even a cycle. The cycle is even an illusion. That's why it's the Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is like, people go, oh, that's life eternal. That's eternal life. That's immortality. Woo! No. That's ignorance. The Ouroboros represents the Ouroboros represents mortal ignorance, not immortality. It represents mortal ignorance. Anything that changes is mortal. So if you want to see it as a that's like a lot of pagans go, oh well, life is a big circle. That's great, but that's not it. I love you too, Serpent.
I just can't. Nah, I mean this in the best possible way. I feel like anybody who lights up a big fat whatever and just tunes into these streams and listen to you, I feel like it's the exact thing that you need to fucking expand your mind and completely terrify everybody at the bar who you talk to it about. It's like, you crazy motherfuckers are like my people, and I love you all, and I feel like this is the kind of shit that just makes us unapproachable to some people.
Now let me ask you guys in the chat. Because I have people who come and they look for like magical instruction and shit, and I'm just like, that's boring. To me, this is so much more important, because even magic pales in comparison to these awakening ideas. Because magic just becomes another little, like, it becomes another lighter. In fact, it's not even as, because the lighter has even more practical purpose, to be brutally honest. Because magic, the way most people practice it, is a complete delusion. The reality of magic is it is synchronistically meant to teach you that you are more than this. It's just another way, and it's not even the best way. I didn't get anything that I'm telling you guys by doing rituals. Not a single fucking thing came to me that I told you by doing magic rituals in the dark with candles. Not one. Everything I'm telling you comes from a completely different spectrum of experience than that. It comes from learning how to shut your brain down and just vibe and just be and attain gnosis. That's the meaning of gnosis. Not the current chaos magician's idea of gnosis is this flicking out of the brain that you achieve when you know, they take the shortcut to that, and that's not actual, like they call it gnosis. Real gnosis is the ultimate epiphany state of you just know. I mean, the word gnosis means knowledge. It doesn't mean like jerking off until you lose your mind. It's a state of union. Jerking off is a way to do it. Like the beginner mode for chaos magic is jerking off, yes, because it's an easy short. Like I think one of the principles of chaos magic is I'm a soft chaot. I'm not an actual chaot. One of the principles is that rather than spending your whole life learning to be a Buddhist monk and learning how to transcendentally meditate and all this shit, you find ways to trick your brain into doing that without doing it. But the problem is, chaos magic comes from a left brain mentality. It's still a left brain dominant position. It's a Western mind position. It says, I'm going to rationally decide to do something subconsciously. Let me say that again. I'm going to rationally decide with my overconscious to do something subconsciously. If you know your neurology at all, you know that that's not how the brain works at all. This upper mind doesn't actually do that. It's a facilitator for what the subconscious is doing. So your whole idea that my left-hand analytical brain is going to cause this and trick my subconscious brain into doing what I want is wrong. So the better interpretation is, and I think it's more the original, maybe some of you guys who really like chaos magic will know better than me. I think the original better interpretation is you're getting your left brain out of the way. That's what it really is. You're getting your left brain out of the way. But a lot of modern chaots are way too analytical about it. They're way too cerebral about it. They're way too, I'm going to plan it all out like this, and they forget the whole point is to shut that fucker up. It's not hard. You do it all the time. Because if a chaot really understood what they're doing, they would do their magic when they're, I don't know, for some people it would be when they're driving a car or painting a picture or something like that.
Fall asleep.
What's that?
Right about to fall asleep.
No, not even, no. Not wrong, but not that. No, it would be when your ego mind shuts off. So, Fleshy, when you're really producing music, do you think, or do you just make the music?
Oh, there's the answer I want to give, but no, my head's wrapped too much into it, which maybe is why I haven't made all that much music.
Yeah, drop mind is just something EA learned from. I'm not to put that down, by the way. I don't mean it like that. But when I say it's just drop mind is mindfulness. It's, you know, it's not. It's just something he's relaying from a very old tradition, and it's honestly it's one of the first things I learned as a kid was how to stop thinking on purpose. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that the objective of things is to never think, and I'm not saying you completely stop thinking. I'm thinking it's this is where language fails. What's a thought? It's not that the brain shuts off or anything. It's that the left brain, that blabbity blab brain, takes a back seat or a side seat. Really, it's not subjugated. It's just it stops rambling and lets the driver drive, if you will. Like they cooperate and they both turn the wheel instead. It's like getting both hemispheres to perfectly be together. Mushin's a good example. Mushin's a good example of that. Yes. Although Mushin's a little bit leans a little bit more reactionary because it's in the martial arts sense, but it isn't. It definitely is active too. Mushin's a good word. So you're kind of seeking that Mushin state. And it's not hard. I actually bet you, Fleshy, you do it more than you realize when you're making your music. You just associate with the thoughts more.
It's very, very possible.
I mean, have you ever lost yourself in a project just completely? You're not thinking like verbal thoughts, visual thoughts aren't. You're just and doing.
Oh, absolutely. With
That's
music,
it.
it tends not to be as much, so maybe that was just a very poor
Yeah,
example.
maybe.
I'm very
maybe.
wrapped up in my thoughts when I'm doing music, but other creative endeavors, like when I really hit the groove woodworking, yeah, there's no thought.
Yeah, that's it. That's it right there. That is the gnosis. That is, when I say that is the gnosis state, that doesn't mean you suddenly understand time, space, and duality and in non-duality, everything. It just means that you are fully in the moment without the distractions of the analytical side of your mind. At that moment, you are seeing reality far more clearly than you do normally. That doesn't mean that you see it as it is, but you're seeing it with a lot more clarity in those moments. Doesn't mean that somebody can't sneak up behind you and hit you. Doesn't give you superpowers. It means that you are not. So analytical thought, as useful as it can be, is a distraction from the real reality. So you need to go into what everyone's saying, like the Mushin state, the drop mind state. Samadhi. That's what chaos magic's trying to lean you into. Is a way to do that without spending years learning to do it. But the thing is, you actually don't need to spend years learning to do it. You just got to get the right moment. Because here's the thing, you don't learn anything over time. You always learn in the moment. If you really think about it, guys, you don't learn cumulatively. Yes, you can assemble complex ideas out of smaller ideas, and so you could say it took time to get that complicated idea, but the revelation of that idea is instantaneous. The revelation of every one of those little moments is instantaneous. And you cannot learn anything by being told it. There is nothing that you've ever learned in your life that you've ever learned by being told it. What happens is when you're told it, your intuition clicks. And you have gnosis of it because it exists in chaos. It just you lock onto it with good night, CM buddy. You lock onto it, but you don't learn it, and you certainly don't learn it over time. If it's more like you're remembering it, it's more like you're getting the ignorance out of the way. All right, so I'm starting to lose my voice, Fleshy, so I think we should probably do the wrap-ups.
Yeah, I was going to chip in and say that I'm losing consciousness pretty fast here. So, yeah, for those... Hold on, let me go do my Vanna White thing. Be right back. I just got blinded by my fucking lasers. Okay, that's great.
I know, like all these LEDs these days, they're actually not good for your eyes, I believe. I know they say that they're fine, but I don't trust it because they're point source light, which is really bad for your eyes, man.
Yeah, that's what I hear, but I like it a lot more than my normal shit. But the greens you see behind me are actual lasers.
I think because LEDs have the casing around it that diffuses it. Otherwise, it would be really... Like, if you were looking at the LED without whatever thing is on it, it would fucking suck. But somehow it diffuses it now. Like the old LEDs, the original, like, old school LEDs were bad for your eyes.
I think Blade and Cloak hit it. Fleshy is ready to fall into one of those fractals.
I liked that one, dude. That was a really good fractal. Because that one was so organic, and it was just like, hey... A couple of tweaks, that could look like somebody's aorta or some shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's wild. So.
I felt like I was right in the Tool music video.
Did it come from a Tool music? Because it looked like it did, yeah.
Oh, no, I just pulled something up on YouTube by looking up Fractal. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, my guy DH here has some books on Amazon, which you should definitely procure yourself if you like any of what he's had to say tonight. Have 3 books and 1 currently cooking in the oven,
Yep.
which I am excited to see.
I'm so, I was telling Eddie, like, I'm really struggling because I'm trying to be more concise, and I feel like I'll probably be fine, but it's just,
No overthinking. Drop mind.
I mean, I could, like I said, I explain it in these videos all the time. It's just, I can't, it's hard to put in 2 words. That was a good one.
I think that's what we need to do is just not have you write. We just need to have an audio editor just come through and take clips out of your live streams and then do
I'm a better writer,
speech to text.
I'm a better writer, though.
You can edit yourself.
Right.
We'll give you the speech to text, and then you just clean it up.
No, because you see how long I go into just describing, like, like butter. Because if you think about it, butter's pretty complicated. So
yeah, don't get me started. You brought up my French heritage earlier.
Oh yeah.
I can feel the spirit of my people flowing forth and just the rants about butter incoming.
We love you too, Atropa. Yeah, good night, everybody. So let's so buy my crap. I could really use it if you haven't. I do have the weekly class. I might be putting that on hold for a week soon. A couple weeks in the Christmas season. We'll have to see. We have to shift the days because I'm going to be working at the nursery 3 nights a week to do that kind of stuff because it's really good money that time of year, and I wouldn't mind doing the I could use the exercise, to be brutally honest, like not just for the money. I could really use the fucking exercise, like that's it's going to be fun, and I love sitting there because we get the little bonfire going and everything, so it's actually fun to do when it's not too busy anyway. So yeah, I still have the class going. Let's see, the books. I have tapestries on Teespring. I have t-shirts, which I have, and then I have consultations and rituals and stuff. So if you want to pay it forward, because I was really cool and did all this stuff for free like I do, consider supporting me on one of those outlets. I have a Patreon and all that. But if not, it's cool. It's fine. I mean, I could use it. I mean, I'm a big boy. I need to eat. But whatever you guys can see your way clear to do, that's all fine with me. So if not, that's also cool. Thank you, Melody. I don't know. I can only hear me talk for so long before I go crazy. That's why I shut my brain off. So you're welcome, Will.
The drop mind is necessary. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. People tune in for this every time you start really fucking chewing on a topic. I see nothing but love in there. Yeah, that's not totally true. I'll see 1 or 2 comments saying that you're chewing the cud a little bit, but the vast majority fucking love it.
Yeah, I never saw the chew. I mean, I've had some haters show up. I never saw. Now that my ego's all quiet because my brain's off. You say that, and suddenly my ego's like, "What, motherfucker?" Like my ego comes from the hood. That's what you got to understand. It will, like, if you leave it alone, it will leave you alone. But the minute you're like, "That motherfucker's dumb," he'll be like, "Excuse me." Ooh, sorry.
You dare come closer?
That's exactly right.
The fucking crow was waiting for it.
That was a perfectly timed comment, Mr. Crowy. I don't know what we're going to call you. Nobody gave us a name for you. All right. Well, that's going to be it for this week, guys. Tune in next week, and we will do some kind of a video this coming week. I don't know whether I'm going to do a live stream or just a video. We'll see. If I do anything, it'll probably drop Tuesday like it usually does. So make sure you sign up for the
mailing list.
Go to the link tree. The first link in the link tree link is a link to where you can sign up your email to get my newsletter. The first installment of the actual newsletter part will be coming on the 13th or thereabouts. And roughly once a week to every 2 weeks, I'll be putting a content email out so that you guys know that I released something. So that's what it's going to be. So, all right, guys, unless there's anything else, I guess that's it. I guess let's give them the goodbye wave.
To mind the shadows, tell your friends, and warn your enemies.
And never take yourself more seriously than your enemies do.
Night, guys.
Good night.